Ho, 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 Merry Flatmas. Hope you had a good Christmas. Now I'm here to ruin it. Yes, Bill, it's live.
We're living on a disk, floating through space, with a tiny sun.
Hey, I'm FTFE and welcome back to the channel that does to stupidity what James Gunn did to the best Superman ever. Hashtag fire James Gunn. 10 years us fans have suffered, and we don't even get to fucking find out what happens. Yeah, screw that shit. Someone said something about an echo. Please let me know if the audio is okay. I hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas. I really do. I've had a fantastic time. Absolutely blissful day with the family. And yeah, it was absolutely amazing. My wife bought me a massive meat cleaver, and, you know, that made me happy. My wife is awesome. So, as you can see in the live chat, I have activated the Gary bot. He's had a few upgrades. There's a few new responses. There, of course, will be a point where, like normal, he just, you know, starts repeating the same things over and over. But you can have some more fun with the Gary bot. That's had a slight bit of an upgrade in the chat. Just tag Gary Webeninger. It's the bot that I created with a team at MIT. It seems almost human. Almost. You know, it's nearly there. But, you know, it's quite clear that it's not quite the cognitive functions that humans have. But have some fun with the Gary bot in the chat. Anyway, it's Monday, so you know what that means. I'm going to speedrun lowering my IQ by talking to flat earthers in a Discord server full of flat earthers, because, you know, why not do that? It's always fun. We are going to pop over to there now. It is the 24/7 Cosmology Tartaria Discord. Run by our flat earth friend Shane, Shane the flat earther that moderates all these things. So let's pop in and have a look who's there. I believe Witsit is actually in there as well, so that could be fun.
We can keep on telling our kids these cool stories like we do about Santa Claus, and it makes it real then, right?
Hey, Craig.
Hello everybody, how are you doing?
You're early.
Good. And you?
I'm fantastic. I had an amazing Christmas. Everyone get what they want. Santa bring you all your wishes.
Wow.
My wife bought me a meat cleaver, and I was very happy with that.
I probably gained 2 pounds.
Yeah, I'm probably the same. The Christmas dinner was, you know, there's 4 of us, but I think there was enough for 12. I had a good go at eating it, though, because that's what you do at Christmas, right?
Does that mean you're bringing back the tight shirts soon?
No, it's all right. I just let myself go for a few days. I've had to put on the trousers with the waistband that expands for the past couple of days, though. You know how it goes.
Like a chick on her period, you mean?
Oh, so after Christmas, the Earth still seems to be round. Crazy, huh?
Yeah,
That's
it's all
a
a matter of
cool story, bro.
perspective, Craig.
Well, it's definitely not a matter of perspective. It's definitely a globe. But I see Witsit's
Hey,
here. Witsit, hello.
do you think that Santa Claus accounted for curvature when he was flying away from your house?
I don't
Oh,
think
absolutely.
Wit's
To the
here.
North Pole?
Absolutely,
nice.
Hey,
Crow.
Craig. Hey,
Hello.
Craig.
Hey,
Craig?
brother. How you doing?
Yeah, Witsit is working on a new argument involving data from Gleam.
Sorry.
I knew you would enjoy that.
Data from Gleam. Hilarious.
You gonna let him get away with that?
What did you eat at
About
Christmas,
data from
Craig?
Gleam.
Hey, Craig,
about?
what did you eat on Christmas?
What was that?
What did you eat?
We had chicken and pork and some roast potatoes and Brussels sprouts with bacon, carrots, cheesecake. Started with some pate on toast. It was lovely.
The better question is, what the hell is Boxing Day?
Very, very British, you know.
Day after Christmas Day over in England.
Yeah,
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 but
yeah.
what does it entail? Is it like
where,
another?
it's where everyone's drunk and just goes out in the street and fights each other.
So like after a soccer match in England?
A what match?
Anyway, when's...
Oh, football. I'm sorry.
Yeah, don't you
Yeah.
ever do that.
Yeah, don't do that, please. Anyway, where has Witsit ever cited me? I don't think he's ever cited me in his life. Ever.
No,
I've
that's what
never heard
Brenda
him.
said. But
Apparently,
I said that I
I'd like
cited
to know
you.
where he cited me.
Well, I cited you because you gave me 10
Yeah.
quotes that I've been
Yeah,
reading
that's not
and going
me.
off. Oh yeah,
That's
but I
not
got
me,
them from
that's
you.
science. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
that's
I
it.
got them.
Yeah,
I got the quotes. And
science. They're citing science, Brenda. It's
And
he
Witsit
cited you.
science.
But and
He
as soon as I
cited you
started
the other
saying the
night.
quotes, they were like, "That's Gleam's, get them!" And I was like, "Yeah, it is from Gleam, right? That is where I get."
Yeah,
but
it
they're
is.
already well known as yours, I guess.
But it's not my work, is it?
Absolutely not. That's why there's 10
No.
citations there. That's what you gave me. 10
That's it.
citations of other people's work.
It's mainstream science. I don't see why I should take any credit for these brilliant scientists doing
Yeah,
all
it's-
these experiments.
It's on visual space, right, and binocular vision.
Oh goodness me.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what Gleam and Witsit are working on.
Cool. So
you mean
people
work-
that wear eye patches.
I've already worked it on.
Cool.
I've already worked on that. That's why I know about it, and you don't. Is that not true?
He said, "I know you don't." He said a little nuh-uh, didn't he?
I mean, you know, binocular
So I
vision
know about it,
doesn't
you
have anything
don't.
to do with measurements, you know? Yeah, I know someone that said I know about it and you don't, with relativity. And I'm going to state emphatically right now that Witsit knows nothing about relativity, and I know way more than him. And I'd love to discuss that, but you know.
I kind of think
Seriously.
if you just start talking about relativity, he might just like snap to and come back. I don't know.
I understand he has just had a baby, and his time is much more valuable to be spent on that than talking to me. So, you know, I fully understand if the guy's busy. He has just had a very important life event.
Yeah, he might be-
He was
might be-
we was talking about this conversation, Flutter today, about how you were disagreeing with him about what's actually being seen, or what is apparently being seen.
Yeah,
And he
yeah,
still doesn't.
he's wrong about
reference
everything with regards to that. Absolutely everything. I was completely right with what I said the last time we spoke, that his conclusions are completely wrong, and I didn't at that time have the knowledge to explain why, but I can 100% explain why his conclusions are completely and utterly wrong now. So, but I'll save that for when he's here, because it'd be more fun.
Where did you get your information?
Oh,
The
yeah,
ladder is-
Einstein,
Who brought you?
mathematics, the second postulate of special relativity.
The guy he was citing. Oh, okay.
Yeah, the guy that he was citing and not understanding the things that he was reading as he was citing them, and ignoring the rest of the paragraphs in the things that he was citing. Yeah, that one.
No one's
That's how it
Einstein,
usually
mate.
works.
What was that?
That's how it usually works with Witsit.
Yeah.
I said no one's Einstein, are they, Craig?
No one's Einstein. Oh, I believe Einstein was Einstein.
But you understand him better than Witsit now, even
Oh,
though
100%,
you've had less
yes.
time.
Absolutely 100%. I understand Einstein's theory of
That's
special
why I
relativity way better than Witsit. Yeah, absolutely
That's
100%.
That's why I asked, who taught you then? Because just you reading it and you
professors that teach this to students. I've been speaking with 3 different professors from around the world. People that actually use relativity in their job to take into account things, actually doing the maths and taking into account the second postulate of special relativity, which on its own, the second postulate of special relativity on its own debunks Whitsitt's interpretation. So it's all good.
I'm glad you found some purpose.
I would like you to, I'd like you to even echo his interpretation.
You would like me to echo Whitsitt's interpretation?
I don't think you know it.
I do.
Think you know
Whitsitt's claim is that there is a contraction in the direction of motion, but if you are in the frame of motion, you are unable to measure it because your measuring device is also contracting. That is his claim as to why the Muon showed exactly what it did. Those are his direct words. So, yeah, I understand his position quite well now.
It's the reverse engineer of the actual phase shift that they see, wasn't it?
Say that again?
That was the account for it. It was the reverse engineer for the phase shift from 0.003 back up to 0.4 to what they expected.
No, I don't think you know what reverse engineer means. It was an explanation of why it was there, not reverse engineer.
What do you mean? It was a reverse engineer for Lorentz to rescue his ether theory.
Well, yeah, that's what Lorentz, Lorentz came up with his version of contraction to try and rescue ether theory, which just so happened that the maths regarding the contraction that he used was
the Lorentz
correct.
transforms. It's the Lorentz transformations. Used in both.
But the application of the mathematics is completely different from Einstein's perspective. That V actually means something different to what Lorentz said compared to what Einstein said. So that's very important. So what Lorentz came up with was an attempt to rescue the ether theory and explain the results of the Muon experiment. But unfortunately, the ether doesn't exist, and it's much better explained by the special relativity.
Craig.
Hello.
You know what's funny? I'm a German, right?
Hello.
If I listen to
Guten Tag.
If I listen to Einstein reading a script, he sounds mentally disabled.
Well, that's lovely that you would say that. Yes.
That Biden actually sounds more intelligent.
Yeah, Biden does sound more like this guy. I don't know where they get him from, but he must be from like some kind of weird actor school. But like he is pretty. He sounds.
And they both read off cue cards and took no questions, except Biden sometimes take questions from the cue cards, but that's okay.
I'm not just saying this because
people don't have to be good speakers to be very intelligent, and that's a lovely attempt at poisoning the well of Einstein there.
Yeah, I do that.
I didn't say married his cousin, but we could say that.
Yeah, I mean marrying your.
I like those poison wells. Yeah,
it's pretty scientific.
Absolutely nothing to do with relativity, but
you guys don't understand it because you don't understand relativity.
It's pretty relative.
No flat earther understands relativity.
Well, we understand why not to marry your cousin.
Wow, that's
cool.
rude.
I mean,
what is there? Put it this way. Put it simply, so you can explain relativity that debunks all flat earthers who ever try to explain it. I'd love to hear that.
The second postulate of special relativity and the fact that distance equals speed times time. That debunks Whitsitt's interpretation of the results.
The second postulate, just to clarify for the audience sake, the second postulate being?
That light is invariant. The speed of light is invariant in a vacuum.
Is that just a way of saying constant?
Yeah, the speed of light will always be measured as 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second, no matter how fast you are going relative to something else. So you could be stationary from your perspective and, fire a beam of light and measure the speed that light's going, right? And you will measure it, if you're able to, at 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second, 300,000 kilometers per second, right? But if you were, relative to that person, going 90% the speed of light, and you then fired a beam of light and measured the speed of light from your perspective, you would still measure the speed of light as 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second. Your relative velocity does not matter. you will always measure the speed of light as c in a vacuum. And that's the second postulate of special relativity. And that alone, with the fact that distance equals speed times time, debunks everything that Whitsitt has ever claimed about relativity.
I don't understand how the speed of light as a constant was relative to how he was saying the reference frame would stop you from detecting the thing you're trying to measure while you're inside of it.
Because it's it's a very simple maths proof, very, very simple maths proof, and I kind of explained it last time with the train example. And you can actually just use the length contraction formula with the variables that Einstein described it as to show that Whitsitt is incorrect as well. That's a really good one, because if v, which is relative velocity, equals 0, then your relative velocity to the equipment is 0, which means that L equals LO, and that means that there is no contraction in the frame that you are in if you're in the same frame as the measurement device.
Yeah, but you said that the fact that speed is constant, that light is constant, that's what debunks him, and that what you just said has nothing to do with that, does it?
Well, no, I really would like to save the math proofs when Whitsitt here, but okay, it's very simple, right? So, right, it's a thought experiment with me, okay? Obviously, the speeds here are made up, right? But so just imagine a train that's going along at whatever speed, okay? And you're on that train. And you've got at one end of the carriage something that fires light and registers that the light's been received. At the other end of the carriage, you've got a mirror. And you're on that train, and you're firing a beam of light from you to the mirror and back, right? Relative to you, the measuring device has 0 velocity, right? And if you were to measure the time that it's taken for that light to go to the end of the carriage and back, you will measure it as 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second, okay? And the carriage has a determined length of x. So the carriage is a certain length. The light has taken a certain time to come back and be measured, and you've measured it as c, the speed of light. Now, imagine that you are an observer outside of the train, watching that train go past, right? And you were to watch the guy inside the train fire that beam of light to the mirror and back, right? For you, for the observer outside of the train, you will see something different than the observer inside of the train. And it's very simple. It's really, really simple. If we take as fact that the second postulate is true, then that means that the speed of light is always going to be the same. So if you are outside of the train, watching this guy inside the train fire that beam of light to one end of the carriage and back, what you're going to experience is this. As he starts firing that beam of light, the train is going to move forward slightly before that beam of light hits the mirror. And then as that beam of light travels back from the mirror to the receiver, the train has moved forward even more, twice as much as the first one, in fact, right? So that means that the light has actually traveled a shorter distance because the speed of light is not going to change. It's always measured the same. So if we take the basic formula of distance equals speed times time, we know that speed, which is light, is always going to be the same. So that speed in that formula is the constant. But we can see that the fact that the light has had to travel a shorter distance because the train has moved shows that the time is the same, the speed is the same, but the distance will physically have to be shorter. Because the light has traveled the same amount of time at the same speed, which means for the light from the observer outside of the train is shorter than the observer inside the train, because the second postulate of special relativity states that the speed of light is going to be measured the same no matter the reference frame you are in. Both the observer in the train and outside of the train are going to measure the speed of light as the same. It's going to take the same amount of time to go from point A to point B and back to point A, which means for the observer outside of the train has to be shorter. But that is,
I don't know, man.
That is length contraction in a nutshell. All right, it's a very simple maths proof. There's a lot deeper maths that can go into the delta of velocity and stuff. But that is a very, very, very simple maths proof, just using distance equals speed times time and the second postulate of relativity to show that the only person that is going to see a contraction is the person outside of that reference frame. For the person on the train, there is no contraction.
The math is actually like, and I don't know shit about calculus, but the math is actually pretty straightforward when you go through it. But where it gets crazy is when you bring in, like, this guy's has a UFO example where two UFOs going at like 90% the speed of light. Then you get this massive differential equation. It's mind numbing. Like, it's wild shit.
Yeah,
Weisskopf is still invariable, and it's still not reaching 100% light. It's crazy.
Interferometers detect linear motion, bro. You're wrong. If it's on a train, it's linear.
Interferometers don't detect linear motion. They
yes, they do. I'll post it. I've already had to post it for every baller I've talked to.
They really don't detect linear velocities.
Yeah, they do on a more accurate scale than you could imagine.
No, it's literally impossible because the speed of light is invariant.
Greg,
sorry.
Don't they move to wavelengths?
Sorry,
because the speed of light is invariable. So isn't that where the wavelength differences come in? When
what
you're
do you mean the wavelength differences?
Like the wavelength of the light stationary versus it moving, like you were saying with the train.
Oh, you're talking about like Doppler shift. Like you would, if it's moving away from you, you would see the light more in the infrared spectrum. Is that what you mean?
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, that's also a good example of relativity, right? Is that the fact that when light's moving towards you, you'd see it as more compressed wavelengths, which would be ultraviolet, and then once it's moving away from you, it spreads out to the infrared, which shows that, you know, light is still the same speed, but from your point of view, the color of that light has had to change because the wavelength is stretched or not.
Hey, you're right. They have solenoid. They have fucking solenoid interferometry, bro. You don't about, man. You need to study
they
up.
Have what, sorry?
I'm getting it for you.
They have what, sorry?
They have interferometry that can measure back and forth at an incredibly precise scale. You're wrong. They do have... hold on, just let me post it, man.
You can't
not just consider
one-way speed of light. You can't measure linear motion of you know, light. That's not how it works.
Well, so hold on.
No, just not the Earth. Just not the Earth linear motion, Craig. Every other motion, just not the Earth.
No, you
Let's
can't.
get it straight.
Interferometers don't measure linear motion. They measure an acceleration of rotation. It's impossible for an interferometer to measure a constant velocity.
So you're saying that the speed of light is constant and never changes, no matter how you measure it. But you're also saying
it's not
a reference frame.
No, it's not a reference frame. It's
right.
Just a universal constant. But light itself
so you're saying
isn't
it's
a reference
not. So
frame.
it's separate from the reference frame. But as I measure it different inside my reference frame, I'm just going to assume it's the same speed as we measure it outside the reference frame.
No,
is that what I heard?
There's no assumptions. If you were to physically measure the speed of light from any reference frame, it's always going to be the same. So if you were to measure the speed of light on that train with no relative velocity to the measurement device, you would measure it the same as the person outside of the train watching the train move. It would still be measured as 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second.
So how did it travel at the exact same velocity over a shorter distance without any changing anything else? That's
the point. That's length reduction. That shows that the length of the carriage from the observer's point of view has physically shrunk. Because if you measure that speed of light and the time that it's taken, they're going to be the same. But the only way that can happen is if there is a physical contraction. And that's what happens. That's, you know, it's also the same with time dilation. And that's why, you know, we have to take into account the difference with a GPS, how fast it's traveling, because if you were on the GPS satellite relative to the Earth's moving past really fast. So from the satellite's point of view, the Earth is contracting. But if you're looking up at the satellite and you were to measure a clock ticking on the satellite, for the satellite, time would be going slightly slower than if you were on the satellite measuring that time. And you know, that has to all be taken into account. That's why we know that if we didn't have this knowledge of special relativity, especially of the second postulate, we literally couldn't operate our GPS systems.
Oh, that's a cool story.
It's in the code. You know, it's literally how they operate. They have to take into account relativistic calculations. Otherwise, they'd be like 7 to 8 miles out every time.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is just how it works. It's just a fact. It's also one of the good.
Bro, it's just the Earth, bro. Listen, I just posted a couple linear interferometers, and now I'll have to post where it literally says that it measures linear motion on a nanometer scale accuracy. And I would get solenoid interferometry, bro. You just talking shit, dude. And the only measurement it doesn't measure linearly is the Earth, bro. Do you hear me? I just posted it. Look at it.
Yeah.
I just went and posted a
Have you
linear
ever actually looked into those
interferometer.
devices? Have you ever looked into those devices and what they actually do?
Yeah, they have single phase solenoid, dude. Just look at it.
Yeah, okay. You're saying words, but could you explain exactly how they measure what they measure?
They can't measure the Earth motion, Craig. Just all
that's
other
not what I asked
linear
you.
motion.
I said, how do they measure what they measure?
Because they use light and they use friendship. They use wavelengths. You know how it works. Don't quiz me. Just look at what I posted, and I'll post some more stuff to follow.
So, are you saying that? Are you saying
you like to learn, but you won't try to learn?
Are you saying that if you put that on something traveling at 500 miles an hour in a straight line, it would be able to tell you that it was traveling 500 miles an hour in a straight line?
Nanosecond to the nanometer.
Incorrect.
Yes.
It's impossible to measure a constant linear velocity.
It's like talking to a donkey, dude.
No. What's funny is that you've absolutely no idea how these things operate, and
no, I just posted a fucking linear interferometer.
Well, what you did was you posted a few Google links with some words, but you have no idea of the methodology of how those things actually measure what they measure.
Don't talk about donkeys like that, dude, please.
Yeah.
Craig,
I mean, can you define a solenoid for me, or?
Craig, when light's traveling through chilled sodium gas, it definitely slows.
Yeah, the C is the speed of light in a vacuum. And technically, the light doesn't slow down. What it does is have to take a longer path.
I know, but come on, that's your side just trying to wiggle out of stuff.
No, it's not trying to wiggle out of anything. It's just the fact that that C is the speed of light in a vacuum, but that's light still doesn't slow down through a medium. It just has to take a longer path because it's being refracted and bouncing around. So the speed of light doesn't actually change, but when it's traveling through something, it looks like it changes because it's interfered with.
It takes a longer time. It takes a longer time. Yeah, that kind of goes against your whole idea here.
No, not really, because again, C is the speed of light in a vacuum.
So what?
So that doesn't matter if there's any gases. That's not what it says. The second postulate of special relativity is that C is invariant. C is the speed of light in a vacuum.
Is it not supposed to move at the same speed in any reference frame in any medium?
No, again, the second postulate is that C, which is the speed of light in a vacuum, is invariant. It's going to appear to be different speeds if it goes through mediums. That's why C is in a vacuum.
So all of this light at the same speed is assumed to be in a vacuum only.
No, that's just what C is. The speed of light in a vacuum is C. What you're not getting here?
You're saying the speed of light in a vacuum is C.
Yes.
So are you saying that the speed of light is only constant if it's in a vacuum?
It appears to only be constant in the vacuum, but we literally just had this conversation because if it's traveling through a medium, there is effects like refraction and having to bounce around particles and stuff that makes the distance traveled longer, so it appears to be slower through a medium.
Well, where's the time dilation there, guy?
Time dilation doesn't happen to light. It happens to something with a relative velocity to something else.
When light bends
compared to the speed of light. Well, I think you're slightly confused here about the argument.
Object, they say that it stays the same time.
Say that again, sorry?
And it takes a longer path. When light bends around a physical body, as opposed to light in a straight line, it takes a longer path, but they say it takes the same time.
Who's they?
No, you're correct.
Your side scientists.
You both had it correct.
Relativity.
Craig said it earlier. It is traveling at the speed of light, C, always, at all times. It's just that when it hits a medium, it is taken a different path, lots of little different paths, like going through glass, it would be a different crystalline structure, and it's still traveling at c, but the paths are longer. I just want to settle that confusion. You're both right. You're both right.
Yeah, the Gleam's correct. So for any, C is C, but C is what light would be traveling if there was no interruptions, if there was nothing in the way, if there was nothing, interfering with it. C is the speed of light in those circumstances. That's what C
when
is.
Light bends around, when light bends around a star, let's say.
Well, that's gravitational. That's different.
Well, hold on. Are you saying that because it's in a vacuum that it's going to be the same speed or same time with the curve path as it would be if there was no star in the way?
If you were to measure the speed of light, it would still be c from any reference frame. But what you have to know, and understand is that if you were on that star or near that star, you would be experiencing effects of gravitational time dilation, which is different to the effects of time dilation and length contraction due to special relativity. They're different effects that actually compound each other.
And you really believe this is reality, Craig?
I mean, it's been experimentally shown. That's how we know how GPS works.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It's amazing, isn't it? That without our understanding of relativity, GPS wouldn't work. That is wow. You're right.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It's amazing. I mean, you do know that personal incredulity isn't an argument against something, right?
Sure,
I'll just take that as a yes.
Hey, Craig, I just have a quick question for you. What do you think fell faster, the buildings or the plane going through the building? I'm just curious.
What's up, Flatter Day? Welcome, dude.
I saw Craig on here. I'm like, dude, out of all the flat earthers in the world, action figures, I'd be his #1 favorite flat earther. Hi, Craig.
I'm just gonna mute him from my side because he's like just not worth talking to.
Wow, he's worse than Democ for you?
Yeah, he just eats onions on live streams and pretends that somehow debunks the globe. So I've absolutely no interest in talking to Flatter Day Saints.
Well, I'm gonna be honest, dude. I saw his debate with you, and it was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I mean, I did have fun just like letting a clown be a clown. That was sure, but there's no point him being here in a discussion because he doesn't do that. He just shouts random shit and tries to act the clown, and that's my job. Fuck you.
It is your job, and it sounds like you're running too. But
I can't run. Only one of my legs work.
What?
I can't run. Only one of my legs work.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
That's why I have this awesome walking stick my wife made me. Right, anyway, so yeah, there we go. That's how basic maths and the second postulate of special relativity debunk Whitsitt's interpretation of the Mux and Morley experiment results.
Yeah, so you're really saying that debunks the quote, they actually can't detect that Earth is rotating around the sun from Earth.
Which quote are you on about?
Well, isn't that the point of the whole Lorentz contraction analogy?
Which quote, show me the quote that you're talking about. Like, post it in the chat for me.
All right.
It's amazing how Whitsitt has actually used these memes, which debunk him alone when you know what the words mean.
Right, so there you go. Between the views of Ptolemy and Copernicus would then be quite meaningless, so either coordinate systems could be used with equal justification.
The struggle so violently in the early days of science between the views of Ptolemy and Copernicus would be quite meaningless. Either coordinate system could be used with equal justification. The two sentences, the sun is at rest and the earth moves, or the sun moves and the earth at rest, would simply mean two different conventions concerning two different coordination systems. Yeah, what about that? He's right. Coordinate systems are, arbitrary. What's your point?
Craig, is your example of the train, is that train accelerating?
No, it's traveling at constant velocity.
Okay, so you're strictly speaking special relativity.
Yeah, that's what this argument is about, yeah.
And that does not work with acceleration, right?
Well, no, acceleration works with special relativity. There's a lot more maths involved. It's a lot easier to do it with a constant velocity.
I don't think it works with acceleration, but
I mean, it does, because it's all, you can take a constant velocity at any point in the acceleration and do the maths.
in other words, the properties of physics are the same for me same for me whether I'm riding a bike or sitting on a park bench.
Yeah, that's
Special
actually the first
relativity,
postulate
however,
of
does not
special
apply to
relativity.
acceleration.
The first
Special
postulate.
relativity, however, does. Can I talk?
Sorry, I
Special
was just
relativity,
agreeing
however,
with you about that's the first postulate of special
All right,
relativity. That
never
the
mind.
laws of
I
physics are the same
get
in
it.
every
I
reference
can't
frame.
talk. You win.
He just can't stop talking. Even when he's agreeing, he can't stop talking over people. It's fucking ridiculous.
Well, I was
A lot of
agreeing
people
and
do.
then waiting for him to finish what he was saying.
I call it interrupt the green. I don't know why people do that. That's not the quote he has. Where's Weisskopf? Where's the other one where he says you can't prove that the Earth orbits around the sun? You have that quote somewhere, don't
Is this all in place of not finding curvature measurements yet? Is that how
Oh
bored we
no,
are?
the curvature measurements are easy. This is just a specific argument that flat earthers have been bringing up a lot lately.
Oh,
you? Boom, there it is. Thanks.
Is that the one you're on about, Shane?
Yeah, that was the one I meant to get.
Right, so let's read that and go through it, shall we? The author unjustifiably stated a difference of Lorentz's view and that of mine concerning the physical facts. The question as to whether length contraction really exists or not is misleading. Now, the next bit is really important. It doesn't really exist, insofar as it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer. A co-moving observer, in my example, is the guy on the train with the measurement device. So as Einstein's saying for him, it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer. Though it really exists in such a way that it could be demonstrated in principle by physical means by a non-co-moving observer. The non-co-moving observer in that case is the guy outside of the train, away from the measurement device. He is the one that will be able to demonstrate that there is a length contraction happening on that train. But for the co-moving observer, there is no contraction, as Einstein states there.
So there is no contraction, but it is contracting. Like,
from the position of the person outside of the train, yes.
Hey, how can it be contracting from an outside reference frame, but not actually contracting in the train? That is so stupid. You can just say the reference frame's different.
I mean, you can say it's stupid, but that's the second postulate of special relativity, and it's been experimentally shown to be a fact.
No, in reality, if it is being measured from the outside, it still has to be happening in there. You just can't measure it.
No, it physically isn't happening in there. There is no contraction inside because the time for the light to go backwards and forwards is what it is. It's only contracting for the person outside of the frame, measuring what's happening in the frame that's moving. That's why Einstein says that, and I'll read it again, that it doesn't really exist insofar as it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer. So the guy on the train, for him, it does not exist. But for the guy outside, it can be.
What you're reading is a letter from Einstein to the dude who said it wasn't actually happening. And Einstein confronted him saying, yes, it is.
Yeah, for the person outside of the reference frame.
Right? I was going to say, dude, isn't that the context that it is? I think
But his words there are telling you it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer. That's his words.
No, but he said, like,
it's not quote mining, it's using the quote that you've given me. And in that quote that you've given me, it literally says that it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer. That is Einstein's own words.
The point of the letter was to tell this dude that he was wrong. We're just going to ignore that, right?
No, we're not. Because it does exist, but for only... Again, let me finish, right? As Einstein's saying, it does exist, but only for it can be demonstrated in principle by a non-co-moving observer. So for the non-co-moving observer, yes, it absolutely exists. But for the co-moving observer, it doesn't. And he literally says it there. You're reading the words and going, well, he's not saying that. He's literally saying, insofar as it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer. That's Einstein's own words.
You understand that's the same thing you say to Whitsitt all the time. You always say it's out of context, and every single quote he brings up is about the thing you're talking about, perfectly in context. And you're using the same rationale now. This is
I'm
bad,
reading the
bro.
words
Like,
in the
relativity
quotes.
is horrible.
Like,
how could it be happening, but
Craig,
not
I think
happening?
you should get
It's
off
so
of
dumb,
the
bro.
train example thing, and I think it would be really helpful for people if you went through like the muons example, and I even posted.
Yeah, the muon's a good
picture
one.
of
It is a good one. But it also takes in time dilation, and I think I'm just trying to get length contraction in there right now. The muon example is a great one, but the maths is a lot deeper than the train example. I've taken the train example and I've developed a simpler maths proof using just distance equals speed times time, because he goes really deep into the maths, doesn't he?
But I mean, with the muons example, he's clearly saying where the measurement comes from, right?
Yeah,
And I'll try to post it again real quick. He's clearly saying that it's coming from the distance of the upper atmosphere to the Earth itself. So technically, they are measuring it exactly how Einstein said they should by an outside frame. They're not measuring the frame itself. And that was my whole beef like last week or whatever, and I got to apologize for that, obviously.
And that's cool, Weisskopf. No worries, dude. We had a good discussion. I know it gets heated, but that's cool. But if we're looking at Einstein's words and what he's saying, he is saying to that guy, no, you're wrong, because it does actually happen, but it doesn't happen for the guy on that is co-moving with the apparatus. And if we look at then the I'm going to upload a quote from Einstein here, and this is him talking about the same thing. And he says, thus for a coordinate system moving with the Earth, the mirror system, the Michelson-Morley, is not shortened, but it is shortened for a coordinate system which is at rest relatively to the Sun. So if you were on the Sun, you are the non-co-moving observer, and if you were to take the measurements from the Sun of the apparatus on the Earth, then you would see a contraction. But for the people on the Earth,
off of Earth,
and obviously it's going to be different depending on where you are. But for anyone on the Earth with that mirror system that Michelson-Morley created, they're not going to see a contraction, because for them it's not happening, because there's no relative velocity between them and their apparatus. And that's what it's all about. It's about relative velocity. With Witzig's interpretation of what Einstein's saying there, he's implying that Einstein is saying there's a preferred reference frame, right? Because he's saying, well, because the Earth is traveling at this speed, therefore that's the contraction that happened. But no, Earth's only traveling at that speed relative to the Sun. If you were to take Witzig's argument but compare it to, say, Mercury, there would be a different contraction, because it's all about relative velocities, the velocities between one thing and another. And if there's no relative velocity between you and the measurement apparatus, there's going to be no length contraction or time dilation. Boom.
Well, did you get that practice argument out well? Are we all rehearsed, ready to go?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really helping me actually get my script together for the video. So I've got 1, 2, it's going to be the fourth video I bring out, because I've got 3 in production at the moment, and then it's Witzig's 1, so probably mid-Feb, I reckon, based on production times. But yeah, I mean, that's how it is, and that's why Witzig is wrong about his claim.
Yeah, I doubt it.
Can I just quote John Bell on just getting a simplified version of the difference between Einstein and Lorentz's version, let's say. I'll read his quote now. The approach of Einstein differs from that of Lorentz in 2 major ways. There is a difference in philosophy and a difference of style. The difference of philosophy is this: since it's experimentally impossible to say which of the 2 uniforming moving systems is really at rest, Einstein declares the notions really resting and really moving as meaningless. Mm-hmm. For him, only relative motion of 2 or more uniform moving objects is real. So it's basically a consequence of how we measure time and our rods and measuring clocks. Sorry, I've interjected there. But Lorentz, on the other hand, to go back to Bell's quote, Lorentz, on the other hand, preferred the view that there is indeed a state of real rest defined by the ether, even though the laws of physics conspire to prevent us identifying it experimentally. The facts of physics do not oblige us to accept one philosophy over the other, or rather than the other.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good quote, because this goes back to what Whitsitt is saying about the Maximordi experiment, right? Because he is, his interpretation would imply that there is this preferred state of rest that was described as the aether, right? That's how you would have, if you were on Earth, the contraction, because you're moving relative to the aether. But that's not what Einstein says. Einstein says that there is no, absolute reference frame. Everything is just relative to other things. You could have, you could be traveling 1,000,000 miles an hour compared to something else. But for you, your constant velocity is 0. Because
but you said there is no reference frame, but you're using light constantly, the constant as the reference frame. As
light isn't the reference frame, though. Light
you just said it's constant, and we know it's constant.
It's not a reference frame.
It'll always be measured the same, even in the distance and occasion that it goes a shorter distance.
But light itself isn't a reference frame. The measurement of the speed of light will always be the same, regardless of your reference frame. But light itself isn't a reference frame.
Right. But you're saying that statement that it's measured the same no matter what, and then you're inserting it into an example where literally it travels a shorter distance, and then we refer to it going back and, well, obviously it couldn't change because we just declared that it is constant forever, therefore it didn't change.
What?
It's the same in every reference frame.
Your example of the trains, right? You said that the speed of light is measured the constant the same rate no matter how you measure it, right? And then you took it into an example
no matter
of the train.
The reference frame, you will always measure the speed of light as c in about
Right. So you took that, you made that statement, and then you put it in your example of, and then you measured it in the train when in the train's moving forward, it bounces back, and obviously it travels a smaller distance in your example, but therefore the speed is still constant because we declared it is, right? You're not seeing that is an inherent contradiction. That's a paradox, right? You said there's no reference frame.
It might seem unintuitive and weird that this is happening, but this is just how the universe physically operates, and we've shown it to be so experimentally. I mean, there's satellites that were specifically put up there to test these kind of theories. And
I just posted in general how they measure absolute distance. They measure relative distance and absolute distance. They've got interferometers that can do all kinds of shit nowadays. There's about 30 different kinds. You are not up to date with your science. But just look in general real quick, and it shows you a quick little demo on how they measure how interferometers measure absolute distance. You're just blurting shit out, bro. You need to study more on this shit instead of studying behind your model. You study on the technology itself.
What are you talking about, Brian? I'm well aware of the science and what relativity actually is. I mean, no matter your misunderstanding of how bits of equipment operate, it doesn't debunk the second postulate of special relativity, which shows Whitsitt was wrong. There is
quantum
no preferred
fucking
frame.
Technology doesn't care about your fucking.
The technology doesn't care about how you misunderstand how it operates.
Just look it up, dude. Just look in
I
general.
have looked it up, and you are wrong about how it operates. It
How
doesn't
can you
measure a constant velocity.
Oh my god.
There is no way to measure a constant velocity. Even your car doesn't measure a constant velocity. It measures the turn of the wheels and the average size of the wheel to estimate how fast you are traveling. There is no physical way to measure a constant linear velocity.
Dude, you said absolute motion, okay? Absolute motion. No, the interferometers are measuring shit in nanometers, you fucking moron.
What has that got to do with anything?
Dude, it shows you have no understanding of what they even are. Talking about a car moving, bro. You're an idiot, dude.
Brian, what are you talking about?
You're talking about a car moving? Are you fucking retarded? They're used to move.
Seriously, what are you even babbling on about?
I'm trying to talk and you keep interrupting me like a donkey. If you shut up for a second, I'll answer your question. They don't measure speeds of cars. They measure shit down to nanometers, bro. They're used to detect very precise, small motions. And fucking, there's all kinds of interferometers if you just study the shit.
And Brian, do they measure a constant linear velocity? Explain to me exactly how.
I gave you a brief description. I just posted it in general on how.
Yeah, okay, just use your words and explain it to me, Brian. How does an interferometer measure a constant linear velocity?
I've already answered you, bro, with phase shift. There's different...
With phase shift.
Linear,
elaborate, please.
Absolute motion is posted. It's literally why I posted it, because I knew
There is no absolute
So I just
motion. There's no such
So
thing.
you're scared to look.
Use your words and explain it to me.
I already did, and I knew you were going to ask me again.
Yes, I am asking you again. Use your words and explain it.
Phase shift, okay? They can use
Those are
diodes,
two words.
they can use fucking...
Now explain how phase shift shows that there's
Shane,
a
I
constant
can't.
linear
Every
velocity.
time he asks me a question, I go to answer it, and he starts blurting, but I can't handle it. If he wants to read in general, somebody wants to read it out loud to him.
I'm waiting for you. Please
This
tell me
dude's a
how
moron,
phase
dude.
shift shows a
This
constant
dude's
linear
talking about
velocity.
measuring the speeds in your car with an interferometer. This dude's an idiot. He doesn't
didn't say that
understand
at
what
all.
it even is.
Brian, you're running off the rail, bud.
Yeah, Brian, everything is relative. Even your phase shift is going to be relative.
You seem really
Especially
angry
your car,
for some
the
reason.
ground.
I mean, I know
The
Globers are
train-
stupid, but you can't let it get to you, or you're gonna go insane.
Yeah, I think it's just a failure to communicate right here. What?
He asked me a question, I go to answer it, and he starts yelling over me.
No, he's
Then he
saying
asked
that
me-
you cannot measure
Hold on,
constant
Janet. Then he
velocity.
asked me the same question again,
only
and I go to answer it,
relativity.
and he yells over me again. Now, Janet's doing this on purpose. But, bro, yeah, it gets aggravating when he asks you a question that he's already asked you and I've already answered. Then I go to answer, and he asks it to me
Are you just
while
going to
I'm
whine,
answering.
or are you going to
Yeah, that does
answer
make
the
me mad.
question?
Sorry.
Which one is it? Are you just going to cry
I'm
like a little
gonna pull
baby,
down.
or are you going to answer the question? Because that's all you guys do. You just fucking complain about being interrupted instead of actually answering the questions directly.
Yeah, I really hate interrupt whining. I usually meet people on site for anything like that.
AFD. Anyway, man, I'm not trying to be an asshole, but I
Well, you're doing it. You're doing it very well if you're not trying to.
No, I get it.
FTFE.
Yo.
Have you seen that video by 60 Symbols that I posted, tagged you in up above?
60 Symbols.
Yeah, popular educational YouTube channel.
No, I haven't. Sorry.
He's a Cambridge guy. He's a good guy. You should sub.
Yeah, it's a really good channel. Anyways, they try to address the question of like light slowing down through glass, and the first one that they go over about 4 of the different theories out there trying to address it, and they explain them all in pretty good detail. Although they do admit that each one of them doesn't hold water because of one glaring flaw in each of them, where it just doesn't hold up. And the issue they have with it taking like a 40% longer path, explaining like the 40% blowdown, is that the lines within the glass of trajectory would be zigzag, but a laser shot through a piece of glass goes straight through. And if it were like taking a longer path, it would have to be like diagonal, and you'd see like a scattering of the laser where it'd come out in all sorts of directions at like 45-degree angles.
Like Gleam actually said, and Gleam, you keep saying things I have to agree with. It's more to do with how I know I'm just saying that Gleam was there.
Okay.
It's more to do with, like, say when it's going through glass, the light has to interact with crystalline structures instead of a vacuum. Which, it doesn't slow down the light, but the light has to interact with that in a certain way. So the speed of light is still same, but the interaction itself is doing something to the path of the light, which is causing it to take a longer path. But from the, if you're looking at it from the outside view, it's still going to look like a straight line, unless there's a physical change in the medium to give an incidence change, of course, like if the glass got denser or something. But when light is traveling through a medium, it still has to interact with things differently. But the light itself, the electromagnetic energy doesn't change what it is because it's going through a medium.
Well, the takeaway from that video is that there's 4 ideas out there, and light taking a longer path being one of the 4 theories out there. But there's 2 professors that are interviewed on this, and they don't think any of the explanations are adequate. So I just wouldn't stick too confidently to, I would just advise not sticking to one of the, theories out there as your favorite. I mean, you can have a favorite, but it's not complete.
I mean, our knowledge of how light goes through a medium is pretty solid, because that's how like fiber optic cables and stuff are a reality, because we know how light acts going through a medium.
Sorry, can I interject? Because I think I know exactly what you're on about there, and it's more, it has been resolved. And there was four theories, or four main theories, which was Fermat's principle, you had Huygens' principle, and you also had the marching soldiers theory. And each of them had a different theory. Marching soldiers was a row of photons hitting the glass, and then it would curl around, and they found that that was physically impossible because you'd have to have the outer curl of the light being faster than light to catch up with the inner curl in order to match the angle. Fermat's principle, yes, it explained the angle of incidence, but it did not actually explain why it's doing it. So that can be used, but it's not the precise, detailed answer. And then Huygens was a wave model, which basically produced too many interference patterns to even eventually get an angle out of it. So all of those failed to explain the theory of light. However, what did explain it was Maxwell's equations. And that is why every single refractive index that you are aware of now is measured based on Maxwell's equations. Maxwell's equations produce that. As far as I am aware, let's say.
Okay, I'd have to look into that.
But I will say, Brenda just posted the perfect one where I learnt it from, which, why does light bend in when it enters glass, which is Fermilab, Don Lincoln.
Yeah, I've watched that one, definitely.
Yeah, and he explains in detail, shows nice diagrams on exactly that. But it was Maxwell's equations of wave equations that basically demonstrated the polarization, which give the predicted angle precisely, as well as explained that light can actually move formally and doesn't have to breach the speed of light.
Yeah. And I see Kosho in the chat that's actually giving a much more detailed explanation, of the exact reason why it seems to do what it does. I mean, what I was explaining is kind of like, if you're looking at it from a macro kind of point of view, but because light is a wavelength, it has quantum variabilities, and the correct explanation, as Kosho says here, is that light takes a superposition of all the paths through the medium, and after you add the interference of all the paths, you get what appears to be a slower velocity. If you get like constructive and deconstructive interference with light interferes with itself. So if there's a superposition of all the paths and there's one path that's near another path, then it shows that there would be an interference. When you take all those paths into account that light could have possibly taken and all the interference patterns that would have been created, it makes sense that that is the actual observed velocity through the medium. So yeah, Kosho, you're absolutely correct there. Quantum shit is weird.
The videos on 60 symbols, if everyone wants to get familiar with some of the theories out there, apparently, it's been resolved and all. Maybe someone needs to leave a comment on these videos telling them to maybe update, make a version 2 upload on the same topic or something then.
Now, what they probably say is that even Maxwell's equations does not understand, and that's where Kosho and FTFE just basically went. Maxwell's equation do not explain superposition. That's the quantum realm, and that's where quantum mechanics comes in and predicting all particular
all possible
points in all points in the equation, let's say, of whatever you're examining.
I mean, if you're looking at the way quantum really works, like, and talking about light traveling, you have to take into account the fact that light could take an infinite amount of paths throughout the entire universe to come back to that point. When you start talking about quantum superposition, things get extremely weird.
Yeah, I don't like the way this feels at all. Keeping it simple, it's just like you shine a laser perpendicular to a sheet of glass, and it has a delay coming out the other side, but it's still an intact laser, and nothing really happens to it as long as it's perpendicular, besides the slowdown delay, and there's no signs of much change at all. It doesn't even
They
matter.
have diodes, bro. They have diodes now that they didn't have when Craig's reading all this other.
But
they
the
have
issue.
diodes that measure absolute and linear motion.
Diodes can measure linear motion now. Brilliant. What's a diode? Brian, what's a diode?
They got different kinds of diodes, Craig. I'm not.
Yeah, all right. What is a diode?
No, I'm not going to teach you, bro. You know.
Oh, so you don't know what a diode is, then?
What kind of diode, Craig?
Just give me the definition of a diode, Brian.
I'm not going to teach you about diodes, bro.
Brian, give me the definition of a diode.
Let's electricity go one way. Let's go one way
There
normally,
we go.
but there's
So
different
one-way
diodes,
valve for
Craig.
electricity. Why couldn't you just say that?
Bro, there's so many different kinds of diodes, bro. You just
yes, but a diode is still a diode, isn't it? And how does a one-way valve for electricity measure a linear velocity, Brian?
Look it up, Craig.
Oh, is that it? As soon as I ask you a question about your argument, I've just got to go and look it up. No, you tell me.
You refuse to listen to it.
I'm literally here listening to you, dipshit. How about you answer the question? Please explain how a one-way valve for electricity measures a linear velocity. On you go.
Measures phase shift. It measures frequency shift for the last time, bro.
A one-way valve for electricity measures phase shift, does it?
This is why I get pissed off, bro. Look what he does, man. Ask me a question, then starts blurting shit out. Look, man, you have the combined patterns, and you have the scattered patterns, and they measure the shift, bro. It's simple shit, dude.
Again, the question, Brian, maybe you didn't hear, was how does a diode, which is a one-way valve for electricity, measure a linear velocity?
With an interferometer, bro. They measure the shift. They measure the
diode. We're talking about a diode.
They measure the frequency. Either it compounds or it separates.
A diode measures the frequency now, does it?
Yes, frequency.
How does a diode measure the frequency?
Oh my God, bro! Dude, there's multiple ways to do it. Craig, listen to me. They all use frequency. There's multiple ways to. There's literally 30, maybe 40 different kinds of ways to do it, bro. I'm not going to teach you, bro.
No, you couldn't teach
anyone. Will you admit now that interferometers can measure relative and absolute motion?
No, there's no such thing as absolute motion, so they can't measure.
Okay, so you don't believe the people who built
there is no such thing as absolute motion, you talking monkey.
Okay, let me read this real quick for Craig.
I'm amazed you can read. That's quite amazing. There is no such thing as absolute motion. It does not exist.
Well, he wants to read out loud something.
Go ahead.
Let me read this. Okay, here we go. So, okay, this is from the people who built it. A simple interferometer, relative displacement, and absolute distance is fabricated that uses a laser diode. The sign of the displacement is detected by means of a 8th plate, and the distance is measured by FM radar technique. There are multiple techniques, like I said, of modulating the laser diode frequency. Did you hear that?
Brilliant. Now, again, my question was, how does that measure absolute motion? Because your claim was just that it measures absolute motion. And not once there in anything you read out did it say anything about absolute motion, Brian. You read it yourself.
It says absolute distance.
Is distance motion?
Hold on,
is distance motion, you fucking chimp?
Let me get it. Let me pull it. Let me pull it up, man.
Brian, is distance motion, yes or no?
Give me a minute.
Brian,
I'll get it.
Yes or no, is distance motion?
Not technically, no, but hold on, I'll get it.
Not technically? What do you mean not fucking technically?
I've already posted it, donkey. I'll go get it again.
Guys, I would like you all to remember here, where Brian Leakey claimed that distance is motion.
I just said not technically, no.
What do you mean not technically? Not at all! Distance is not motion!
It can measure.
How's it measure distance, Craig?
Motion.
You said absolute motion.
Craig, what's moving, Craig, for it to measure distance, Craig? What is moving, Craig?
There is no such thing as absolute motion. Seriously.
You can't take the donkey comment.
Craig, what is moving for it to measure that distance?
Craig,
what's...
There may be a relative motion, but there is no absolute motion. Talking chimp.
I don't know if FTFE needs reinforcements from Skylay and Zanuck, but if he does, I certainly understand. Leaky is certainly intimidating and beating the shit out of him right now.
Well, no, that's a simple question, man. What is moving for it to measure distance? Simple question, Craig. I've literally answered
moving is relative to what?
Are you both just gonna continue talking over each other? Can we calm down? Zanuck, you can ask Craig if he needs your assistance right now. That'd probably be the way to go.
Craig, I don't. This is fun.
Craig hasn't answered not one of my questions.
I literally have you, moron.
Let me. Craig, can I answer one question?
Zanuck, shut up and let me ask him my question. Damn, man. Craig, what is moving for it to measure distance, please? What is moving for it to measure distance?
Relative to what? Moving. Moving is a meaningless term.
What? For it to measure absolute distance, what is moving for it to measure that? It's just a simple question. It's not a trick question.
Moving is a meaningless term. In its own reference frame, it's not moving. This shows you don't understand special relativity.
So nothing's moving. That's your answer? Nothing's moving?
If something's at a constant velocity, no. Its relative velocity is 0. Unless you compare it to something else. Then you can talk about how fast it's moving. Because there is no absolute motion, so I cannot tell you if something is moving if you don't give me something to compare it to. You fucking moron.
So what is it, using a tape measure, Craig? Is it using a tape measure?
Right, again, that's distance, not motion.
Alright. Let me go pull this other shit
up. You don't
know
the difference between distance and motion. This is quite worrying. You're an adult. You should know those things. Please, Brian, never drive a car.
Bro, I've already posted where it measures fucking motion, linear distance. I've been posting it the whole time.
Yeah, again, distance is not motion. I don't know how many times I have to say this to you, but they're not the same thing.
What's linear motion, Craig? Is that motion?
Sorry, can you tell me where it measures an absolute linear motion? Which was your claim was that it measures an absolute motion. Unless you can back up that claim, you're a liar.
What are you talking about? I'm lying. I've done been.
You said it measures absolute motion. I am waiting for you to back up the claim that it measures absolute motion, which isn't a fucking thing.
What if it just says motion?
Motion is relative to something else. Brian, listen to the words coming out of my mouth. There is no such thing as absolute motion. No such thing. It doesn't exist like your brain.
How did it get to absolute distance, Craig? How did it get to absolute distance?
Absolute distance of what?
How could it measure distance, Craig, using light? Let's talk about this.
Distance compared to what, Brian?
Distance moved.
Compared to what? Distance moved compared to what?
Compared to where it was a fucking nanosecond.
But there's no absolute reference frame.
It's talking about absolute distance fucking traveled, bro.
Absolute distance traveled compared to what?
Yeah, compared to where it was a fucking nanometer previous.
So it can measure measuring motion compared to itself? I don't think you understand how this works.
How long can I call me a liar till I go pull this back up? It's going to take me a minute.
What's it measuring motion relative to, Brian?
How about?
I just said absolute distance, bro. Absolute distance.
What's it measuring motion relative to, Brian?
Relative to its position when the freaking shit was turned on. Basically, from the beginning of the measurement till the freaking end of the measurement. The distance, absolute distance, bro. You don't know what absolute distance is, do you?
The absolute distance relative to what?
Craig, what is absolute distance?
There's no such thing as absolute. These terms are meaningless. An absolute distance compared to what? What are you measuring it relative to?
So they posted a meaningless word on their technical data sheet.
I mean, you don't understand what the words mean or how they operate.
Well, then we'll just say it. Well, please do explain. What's absolute distance, Craig?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is
relative to what?
You guys, when you guys are done measuring e-peens, right? I think you and Cyrus could have a nice 1v1. That'd be sweet. I'm not.
Yeah, cool. No worries. Brian, maybe go and
saying in a
Brian,
sarcastic tone.
Brian,
He's
go and
asking
study
me-
what
he's asking- when I'm asking
Brian. Go and look at what the second postulate of relativity is, then come back and talk to me. All right? You're done for now.
Hey, first off,
Brian, I said you're done for now.
Okay,
Brian,
just so you know,
Brian, I said you're done for now.
this
Go
is
and
the
look at
last
what the
thing I'm
second.
gonna say.
Brian, listen
This will
again.
be the last thing I say.
Brian,
You can
Brian,
not
listen. No,
interrupt. Okay,
no,
absolute
Brian, I'm done with you now.
honest face.
Brian, I am done with you now.
Please let
Brian-
me say my closing statements.
No, Brian, I'm done.
before
No,
we
Brian,
get
I'm
cut
done
up,
with
dude.
you now. You can go. You
Shut
are
your
you
mouth
are
for 1
dismissed.
second, bro. 1 second, and I'll be gone.
Brian,
Damn,
Brian,
now please finish.
Brian, you are dismissed. I'd like to talk to this other guy.
Listen, absolute is the opposite of relative.
Yeah, so I've muted you, Brian, so you can't be heard on my stream, so it's completely pointless you talking. So who was the other guy that wanted to talk to me? If he's still talking, nobody can hear him apart from the people in the server, so it's kind of pointless. Is he still going on? I would just like to talk to this other guy who's not just going to scream about not understanding relativity.
Brian, can you please chill for a while, dude? I'm sorry. It's so painful to listen to you guys screech at each other.
Again, I can't hear a word he's saying anymore. I want to talk to this other guy that you mentioned. So
It's more than, bro. It's more than painful, bro. I don't even know what they're talking about anymore. Like,
No one's even.
I disconnect. Like,
that's why I've kind of muted Brian, because the conversation's going nowhere. So yeah, is he still talking? I don't know. Shane, is Brian still talking?
Yeah, he is. Brian, bro, I think he got you muted, so you can't hear
Yeah,
you. So
I've no idea what he's saying. I'd like to talk to this other guy.
Oh, we'll try to talk to him, man, because I think you guys are just talking past each other. So
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why I've muted Brian. The conversation's pointless. He doesn't understand special relativity. So Shane said that this other guy I could talk to. So
Well, Cyrus has got to go in a little bit, so let's give Cyrus a little time before he bounces.
Cyrus, is it?
What's up? Yeah.
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How about yourself?
Excellent. Had an amazing Christmas. My wife bought me a meat cleaver. That made me happy.
Oh, shit.
You're not gonna get your neighbor with that, are you?
No, I'm not allowed to talk to my neighbor still. And if anyone's interested, there will be, once the court case is done, there will be a full explanation of exactly why I was arrested and have to go to court.
Oh, you got arrested. Okay.
But serious. Anyway, yes. Hello.
You were saying motion is. I'm good, man. I just wanted to comment about motion and distance. What you asked him, and it got wild. I think around that. Motion is like displacement or change of distance, like position, really. Like So if you have a starting position like X, whatever 0, 0 to then you're like at X3, Y4. Yeah, something moved to that point and.
Yeah, but you just gave a coordinate system, didn't you? So the coordinate system would be relative to something. That's why, distance and motion, these things are all relative to something else. It's pointless to say that if you were, a little thing in space away from everything, you wouldn't know if you were going forward in a constant velocity. There would be literally no way to measure that because there's no reference as to what you're measuring it to, that's what I was trying to say to him there.
Yeah, correct. You need a reference, yes. Where is it that you're measuring from the displacement,
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Otherwise, it's just kind of a meaningless term, and that's what Einstein was saying, that, these terms are kind of meaningless when you look at it from the standpoint of, the first and second postulate of special relativity.
Okay, so that's what you guys were arguing?
I think so. Brian shouts so much, it's hard to understand. Have you got anything that you'd like to discuss, specific? You are a flat earther, I assume?
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah.
Of course.
So why are you a flat earther?
Why am I a flat earther? Cosmology-wise, I think it's simpler in many ways, but it's not refined.
Do you mean...
yet to be refined, of course.
Cosmology-wise, do you mean like the nature of what we see in the sky and things like that?
Yeah, like bending and warping of space-time, that's that kind of cosmology, and I don't really subscribe to that.
Right, okay.
Before I came to flat Earth, so I went into that, and it's interesting how you can bend time.
I mean, it is interesting, and it's kind of mind-blowing when you figure out that these things actually happen. Gravitational time dilation is a great one, but that's very confusing.
Yeah. Like, yeah, what is time for Einstein that he's bending? Like, what's time exactly?
Time is just the passage of thermodynamic entropy from one point to another, I guess, you know? The second law of thermodynamics kind of gives us what I would say is the arrow of time. You know, you're going from point A in time to point B. Thermodynamics gives you the direction that happens, you know, going from order to disorder. That, you know, for me, in my head, that's how I think about time, is the fact that there has been an increase in disorder in the universe, and that has happened in time. It's a hard thing to conceptually explain, but in my head, that's how I work with time.
Okay, interesting. So it's like an entropic time.
Yeah, I mean, because that's how I kind of determine what the flow of time is by what the universe is doing in general. And it's shown experimentally that you know, that entropic decay, the speed that is happening changes, you know, based on relativistic effects and gravitational effects.
Ask a question.
Hello? Yes?
Go for it, man.
If the other guy doesn't mind.
No, I don't mind. Go ahead, man.
So are you saying in a void universe of matter where there's only photons traveling, you wouldn't consider time to exist?
There would still be
photons in a void.
There would still be a trend towards disorder.
But there's no thermal energy there, right? If it's just photons, or do photons have a
necessarily
temperature?
just mean thermal energy. But there would still be, even if there was just photons, there would still be a trend towards disorder. And that's kind of what the second law of thermodynamics tells us, is that there's always going to be a trend towards disorder in the entire universe. You know, whether it's just of energy, if we consider the universe as just energy, or as mass and energy, there's always going to be this trend towards disorder.
How would you imagine light getting messier?
What do you mean light getting messier?
Ooh, I mean, it dissipates. I wouldn't think of light as getting messier. Like heat. Just heat dissipation is like omnidirectional, so it's not really good to think of light as heat.
No.
Well, isn't kind of disorder a poor way to look at entropy anyway? If we're talking about Boltzmann's,
it's a messy description. You're right. It's a messy description of it, but it's the most simple to understand.
I think why can't? But I think what he's getting at is that if entropy was constant, let's say we had absolute zero in the universe, at whatever temperature we had the greatest level of entropy. So there's no more change of entropy. This time stop is what he's saying, and I think time still goes on because it's the progress of existence. Whether these processes are going on in the background or anywhere.
But that's interesting, right? Let's assume that the universe is what we say, and then over time the universe, you know, expands so much that you know, there's basically heat death of the universe, and there is no real way to determine if there's any more entropic decay going on. I don't think in that case, I don't think that time itself has a meaning, because there's no way to determine, you know, that there's a progress forward in any way. It's like I mean, it's crazy and hard to think back, but before the universe it existed in the heliocentric model, you know, there was no time, because that the mere concept of time becomes meaningless without something that is giving us a guide. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I think we're getting more into philosophy here. It's an interesting.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
it's a fair philosophy.
It's not. I asked
what fair philosophy.
Yeah. Well, we have to define what time is, because it's in equations and whatnot. So, 1 second or whatever in SI units. What does that exactly mean, right? Well, so I mean, that's why we went to the entropy and all that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we could determine time. We can think of it in light, right? So we can say that 1 second is the amount of time that it takes light to travel a certain distance, right? But that still implies that there's some kind of, entropy going on. There's still some kind of movement towards one thing to another. And I suppose that, it's different to just saying it's pure entropy as an arrow of time. It's using the speed of light as a constant. But then when you think of the fact that in the heliocentric model, the universe is expanding, but the speed of light itself stays constant relative to you, it then gives that no meaning in itself. Can you stop? You're breaking my brain, please.
Who, me?
Yeah. These kind of thoughts are really interesting, because I don't think these are things that it is within the realms of science, because you can't really determine a lot of these things without knowing, like, if there's a state that exists like that. But it is totally interesting. You're right. If there is if there's no movement in the universe, how are we going to determine that time's going on? But I suppose in a sense there is still, if you were there in this void of the universe, you would still experience for yourself a progression of time, right?
Well, okay, so what you said about light, I just wanted to comment about that, because I would totally agree 100%. If the speed of light was always constant, then yeah, absolutely. But like we know the permissivity of space is 377 ohms. If that changes, the speed of light would change. But of course it doesn't, right? It's somewhat absolutely constant, not quite. It kind of fluctuates when we measure it, but that we can neglect that. We can just average it out. But if the permissivity was to change of free space, then speed of light would change. Then your second would change. But for all means, yeah, that it's pretty good. Yeah, it's like I would take that.
I've very much enjoyed talking to you, Cyrus. I like it when my brain starts to tick in these kind of conversations. It's things that I don't think we can really answer. A lot of those questions are things that I don't think we can answer, because we as humans, I don't think we can conceptualize nothing. Do you know what I mean? That's not something that is really easy to picture in your brain, is the concept of nothing, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that. I'm yet to figure that out. Like, I can't. What? So in my cosmology, like, that's why, like, you asked me why I was a flat earther. For my cosmology, like, time of, like, the 1 second is simply, like, the position of, like, the displacement of the stars or, like, the sun. We have different, like, rates that those rotate at. Right. Sun, moon, and, like, stars, yeah. So for me, like, I use the sun. Like, 1 second is how much angular displacement of the sun equals 1 second. You can use whatever numbers you want, but that's what, 60 seconds and all that system is. I'm sticking with that, the normal SI time,
So why does that make you think that the Earth is flat?
No, it just, for my cosmology, this works out way cleaner and better than bendy time, because we haven't even defined time yet, and then this guy's about to bend it for us and make a fabric out of space-time for it. And it's like, okay, I'd like Einstein to, I like to dislike him. But I've read
a lot of flat earthers do. I mean, we don't even have to look at, like, things like special relativity and that to see, what the Earth is. Why does it go to that area for you? Why can't you just look at, like, empirical measurements and stuff?
So yeah, when we also, like, observe it, let's say, to be flat, then we have, like, refraction. That's actually, this appearance of flatness may actually be curved, but you cannot perceive it to be such. And for me, like, the definitive answer, because I like machining and metrology, like the measurement of, like, measuring, the science of measuring. So for me, the rectilineator done again would be the best, like putting literally 2 straight edges against the earth, like, or, on water, whatever. Both would work, one leveling it mechanically, another one you're just following the level of the earth, and that should deviate. If it opens up, it's convex. If it gets closer, it's concave and whatnot. But it's impractical, expensive. The differential, like, section of it would have to be quite large for us to get, definitive measurements, and then you have thermal expansion. You have problems. But that, for me, would be conclusive. Whatever, I know they've done it before, but the results were concave in 1800s.
Yeah.
The rectilineator.
I think something that would be good for you to look into is tow tanks. massive basins of water that are used to test stability of boats and stuff traveling through waves and everything, right? They exist in these massive basins of water, okay? And these basins of water, they have carriages that move along it, so that it can move things into certain positions, and it's got to be at a certain height. And to do these tests properly, the carriage has to make sure that it's an exact amount above the water. So at one side of the whole facility, the carriage is, say 1 centimeter, and at the other side, the carriage is 1 centimeter. And at every point along that, it's got to be exactly that amount above the water, right? And they physically have a guy go along at different sections and measure to make sure that the carriage is, the rail is at the right height. And as they go along, they measure this bit, and they make sure that it's the exact right bit above the water, right? But what you actually find out is if you were then to measure that rail that the carriage goes along above the water, it's actually curved slightly, very, very slightly. But I can send you the technical specifications. Mike, Beetleson,
what is this
great
called?
video. It's tow tanks. It's testing for stability of boats and stuff in water with waves and everything. But they've got to be very, very precise to get these things the way they need them. Excellent video by Mike Bertelson. That if anyone's able to, could they get that video by Mike Bertelson to post in the chat, please? But that for me is one of the best engineering proofs of the curvature of water, because what you actually find out is when you measure that amount of curvature, it matches what we say the arc of the Earth should be, and that was pretty conclusive. Daniel Pratt debunked the video by not watching it.
Oh no, I gotta look into this. I know nothing about this, so I'm not gonna comment, man. Like I have to study about this.
Yeah, that's why I said it's something great to look into. I wasn't aware of this for a long time, but when I saw the proof, looked into the engineering specifications behind it, and actually how they make sure that each section of that carriage is exactly the right amount above the water as they go along, and to then still have a curve to that tow rail, that shows something to me.
Okay, I will look into this and I'll let you know what I think.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I really do.
You wanted me to come teach you why you're still wrong about relativity.
How are you? How's the little one?
Perfect timing, man.
She's good. We had a relativistic labor, so we had contractions and dilations, but just couldn't tell.
Oh well, that wouldn't be relativistic because that's not what relativity says. But
So y'all had the baby with you?
Well, I didn't have one.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah,
Yes,
you did
yes.
together though.
Cool. My sincere,
Yes.
Congratulations, Witsit. Absolutely 100%. Congratulations on the birth of your child. It's an amazing thing.
Onward to your intellectual evisceration.
Yeah, so, Witsit, I'm going to make a claim here, and that is that you're wrong about relativity, and I know way more about it than you do.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Didn't take me long.
That was quick.
Just a little bit of studying.
All right, let me lay this out for the audience. So what FTFE and DFE think is that length contraction only happens for a non-co-moving observer outside the reference frame of that is moving, and that it does not happen for the reference frame that's moving.
Exactly, yeah, that's what Einstein said.
Okay, so what you don't understand is what Einstein actually said is all objects in motion are contracting. But if you're in a reference frame in motion, as in a co-moving observer, it doesn't quote-unquote happen for you because all spatial dimension within that reference frame also contracts.
Can I have a
So
citation
you
for
must
that, please?
be outside of it. You must be outside of it to be able to detect it.
Okay, that is
If
not what
what you're
Einstein said.
saying
He
is
never
true-
said that. He never once said that. You are lying.
So if what you are saying is true, then you're claiming that length contraction is just an apparent effect.
No, we're not. We're saying it's a physical effect that will be observed by the non-co-moving observer. And that's
Okay, so
exactly
if
the
it's
thing that
physical-
you've been posting by Einstein for ages actually says that very thing and shows that you were wrong. And your interpretation, motion, anything in motion, requires an absolute frame, which Einstein says doesn't exist, and also goes against the second postulate of second relativity. which shows that you are very, very wrong.
You're gonna get so destroyed. It's hilarious.
No, I'm not.
Just prepare yourself. This is being streamed, right?
Yes, it's live right now.
Perfect.
I've got 600 people watching.
Awesome. This is gonna be great. This is gonna be
Yeah, it's
just
going
like
to be
what
great because
happened
you're
last
going to
time.
misunderstand relativity 100% and look like a moron.
Hey, do you remember last time you said that?
Yeah, well, here's the thing, right? Do you remember when I admitted that I applied the mathematics wrong to my argument? And I admitted that I was wrong, showing intellectual honesty. Well, Witsit, it is your turn to show that you are wrong about what Einstein said. And it is your turn to admit that you are wrong, to show your intellectual honesty. You are wrong, and you need to admit it.
This is gonna be awesome.
It is going to be
like
awesome.
The last. I'm gonna need you to not interrupt me because I.
Oh,
have
don't
family
cry like a
over at the
little
house.
baby. Come on, just get on with it.
I have family over at the house.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm not gonna
Alright,
be
just
raising my voice.
You don't have to be raise your voice, but don't whine about being interrupted like a little child. Just get on with it.
Okay. So if we're outside the moving reference frame and we see contraction, and you're claiming it's not apparent, that it's a physical effect, then is the moving reference frame physically contracting?
If you are looking at it from non-co-moving position, yes.
So we're looking at physical contraction?
From the non-co-moving position, yes. But not
So
in the
what are we
co-moving
looking-
position.
What are we looking at?
We're seeing a contraction from the non-co-moving position.
Right. So we're
Yeah.
seeing... Now, where's the physical contraction happening?
From the non-co-moving position, observing the thing that is in relative motion to it.
Where is the physical contraction actually happening?
I just told you.
No, you didn't. You avoided
This is so funny. He still
I
doesn't.
literally-
He's starting to see how easy it is to destroy him too. I can
It's
feel
not.
it.
It's
pretty clear.
You don't understand what the second postulate of special relativity is, do you, Witsit?
Stop diverting.
Do you know the
Where
second
is-
postulate of special relativity?
Hey,
Is that
if
of
I'm
interest?
looking,
No, you don't, do you?
At, buddy, listen. If I'm looking at the reference frame in motion, okay,
Relative to
where
you, yes.
where is the physical contraction taking place?
In the reference frame that is moving from your position.
Oh, so then the reference frame that's moving is physically contracting?
Only from the non-co-moving observer, yes.
So it's just an apparent effect.
Not from the non-co-moving observer, no.
So it's a real physical effect in the moving reference frame.
No, from the non-co-moving observer.
You don't see that you're double speaking?
Not at all. No, it's this right again. This is the second postulate of special relativity, Witsit. Do you know the second postulate of special relativity?
Speed is constant. Shut up.
No, I'm talking to Witsit, so you shut the fuck up. Witsit, do you know the second postulate of special relativity?
Yeah, it is a constant speed of light.
That's not really it.
In a vacuum. Shut up.
No, it's like
again.
it's also
Shane,
about relative motion.
One sec, Shane. I'm talking
It's
to
about
Witsit. Can
relative
you
motion.
just make this other guy
and the
shut up,
speed of light
please?
it's about relative motion, and then the speed of light is constant in all frames of reference. That's irrelevant. That's called a non sequitur.
It's not called a
See if you
non
can keep
sequitur
up
because
with
it
me.
actually
See if you can keep
debunks
up
you.
with me for once,
It
dude.
actually
See if you can keep up
debunks
with
you.
me.
Witsit, the second postulate, which is the speed of light being invariant, debunks you. Debunks
does not.
your nonsense claim. Right?
Buddy,
I
this
went
is what
went
you
through
don't-
a very simple maths proof earlier. All right, and I'll go through it again for you right now if you like, showing how wrong you are.
No, listen. This is why you don't understand. Okay.
I understand.
So-
Don't tell me I don't understand because I do understand. You don't understand because you don't know how the second postulate of special relativity is actually applied, and you can't comprehend it in your head. And because it seems a little weird, you think we're double speaking. But no, it's just because you don't fucking understand what you're going on about and misquote Einstein and don't know what Einstein was actually saying. You are wrong about what you are saying. There is no physical contraction in the co-moving reference frame. Simple as that. It is only a physical contraction from the non-co-moving frame if you were able to measure the co-moving frame from the non-co-moving frame. That's how it works. That's how it is. Whether you agree with it or not is irrelevant. That is how it is.
Okay, thanks for your nice little emotional implosion there.
No, I'm gonna cry
now
about
you're
something
talking
again.
again. You see how you just monologued and now you're
Yeah,
immediately
shut the
interrupting
fuck
me?
up, you bitch. Just get on with it.
If I'm so wrong, you probably wouldn't have to do that.
You are wrong. I'm doing
So-
it to show how wrong you are.
You're showing how wrong I am by censoring me like a child.
I'm not censoring you. I'm just, every time you say something, I'm pointing at how stupid and wrong it is. You don't understand
it's-
relativity in the slightest.
Look, he's just going to keep doing it because he's afraid. He can feel
No one's afraid. I've debunked you. It's done.
Do you guys want to do like
scared.
60-second back and forth? Because I mean,
Yeah, we need to. This dude's a child.
Oh, yeah, of course I'm a child. You're the one whining like a little bitch.
Because you keep interrupting me.
Oh my god, I'm getting interrupted. I'm so sad. Shut up.
Wow. At least you're tough on the internet, right? I guess.
Oh,
So anyway,
I'm tough. Don't worry. I'm fucking tough.
let's try to attack the idea, not the person, guys. I know
tough
you guys hate each
to listen to, that's for sure. So the point here is that what you're claiming is that if I'm outside of the moving reference frame, there is real physical contraction that can be observed within the moving reference frame.
Correct.
Which means that the moving reference frame is contracting. And
Wrong.
that contraction can be observed from outside of the moving reference frame.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's literally the mind fuck of it, though, isn't
Now,
it?
this is what you don't get. If you're claiming that it's not contracting in that moving reference frame, then you're claiming that it's just an apparent effect
No,
from
that's a straw man.
outside the moving reference frame, where it appears to have a shortened length,
No,
but
it's
it's
just-
not
that's a straw
actually
man.
physically contracting.
That's a straw man.
No, that's what you're. I'm explaining that you don't understand.
No,
the
I do
implications
understand.
of your
And what you've just
position.
said is a straw man. There is no
No.
contraction in the co-moving frame. The contraction only happens if you measure the co-moving frame from the non-co-moving frame. It's not apparent. It's a real physical thing. But it only happens with relative velocities are going on. That's what you don't understand. You are, you're being like, oh no, I don't think that's true. Aha, you're double speaking. But that's exactly what special relativity says. Whether you agree with it or not, that is what special relativity says, showing that you are wrong about your claims.
This is incorrect. So, it's funny how you had the audacity to.
Cite me that I'm incorrect.
Can you please stop interrupting me?
Come on.
Nah, I'll interrupt you if I want. It's fun.
Yeah, because you know you can't debate me. So
I've already debated you on
funny
one.
that you had it's funny that you had the audacity to bring up the quote from Einstein when I'm the one that gave it to you guys. I'm the one that found the quote, made it a meme, and gave it to you. And now you're like, oh, Einstein said this, he debunks you.
It
You
does.
obviously don't understand
It
the
debunks
quote.
you.
So
I
let's go
do
through
understand the
quote.
quote because I understand the second postulate of special relativity and can do the maths that it is based on. You don't understand the quote because you don't understand the second postulate of relativity and couldn't do the maths of your life depending on it.
So let's go through the quote so we can show why you're wrong. So there was a
Why
guy
I'm wrong.
that named Vladimir. There was a dude named Vladimir, and what he wrote was that according to Einstein, as opposed to what Lorentz claimed, which is that there's a real physical attraction, the contraction is actually just apparent relative to the viewing reference frame. And then Einstein came out and said, the author unjustifiably stated a difference of Lorentz's view and that of mine concerning the physical facts. Okay, well, what are the physical facts of Lorentz contraction? Well, Lorentz said that there is contraction in the direction of motion physically. So if there is no difference in the physical facts of Lorentz's view and Einstein's view, how is it that you're sitting here claiming Einstein said there was a difference in the physical facts and there isn't contraction in the direction of motion?
Because, as Einstein said, direction of motion is a meaningless term because that's all a relative thing. What you are claiming actually goes against the second postulate of relativity. And in that same quote that you were talking about, Einstein literally says that there is no contraction in the co-moving frame. Those are his words. That there is no contraction in the co-moving. No, I'm talking like the quote that you're talking about. All right. After the bit that you've just said, he then says there is no contraction in the co-moving frame, but it could, in principle, be demonstrated by someone in a non-co-moving frame, i.e. someone that rests relatively to the sun, right? But here's the problem with what you're claiming, because...
Oh, you're imploding.
No, how about shut the fuck up and let me explain why you're wrong. Here's why
So
you're
is
wrong.
what, I'm talking
right. It's time for you to
did you think that that
It's
meant
time
that
for you to
were
be
just
quiet
gonna-
now and learn.
Hey, whenever
There's a good boy. It's
ask
time for
me
you to be quiet now and learn. Right, thank you.
When you asked
there
me
we
to
go.
come on
I'm
here and
about
talk
to
to
talk.
you-
I have just listened to you. Now it's my turn to talk. So thank you very much. Right, here is why
That's crazy
you.
how that happened. I
Here's
don't know
why
what
you
happened.
are
It
wrong.
must have been a glitch
right
or something.
here is
So
why
just so we can
you are
clarify,
wrong.
I'm just going to leave.
Here is why
I'm not-
if you
I
want to
didn't
run
agree to
away
come talk
while I
to
try
you
to explain
so
why you're
that
wrong, that's
you
fine. You're
won't
going to run
ever
away.
let me speak, and then
well,
you just
I'm speaking right now.
monologue
You've
for
just spoken.
5
Now it's
minutes
my
at a
turn to
time.
speak.
Would you please just have a
You've just
cordial,
spoken with it.
respectful
Now it's my turn to speak. Here's why you're
just have a
wrong.
normal conversation.
Yeah. So normal conversation. You've just spoken. Now it's my turn to speak. So be quiet and let me speak. Thank you.
You're dish galloping.
If you want to be quiet and let me speak, that'd be wonderful. Here's why you are wrong. Because the contraction that Lorentz suggested, the 55 nanometers that we talked about before, that is relative only to the sun. If you were to take... no, I'm not wrong about that at all. That is only...
You were objectively wrong about it, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm really not. That is only relative to the sun. Because it is a
you
motion...
like a third grader understanding of what it was.
Again,
Go ahead.
it is a motion relative to the sun. So that 66,000 miles an hour or whatever that creates the 55 nanometer contraction, that is something that is relative only to the sun. If you were to be a different thing, say on Mercury or on Venus, and to look at Earth from the reference frame of Mercury or Venus, the contraction would be a different amount because the relative velocities would be different.
Irrelevant.
So what you are saying is completely wrong because it implies an absolute reference frame, which Einstein was vehemently against.
No, okay, it doesn't imply an absolute reference frame.
It does.
So we're going to go through the rest of the quote, okay? So I was showing the first part of how if you had any intellectual competence at all, you would know you're wrong, but you will never admit it. So we'll move on to the next point.
You're wrong.
The question as to whether length contraction really exists or not is misleading. It doesn't shut up.
No.
It doesn't quote unquote really exist insofar as that means in the case of
correct.
Insofar as it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer.
Brilliant.
Meaning, if you're also moving in that same reference frame and attempting to observe it, you will not be able to do that.
Because it doesn't exist. Yeah, like he just said, it doesn't exist. Those were his words, right?
Dude, it doesn't quote unquote really exist.
Yeah.
Only insofar as it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer, meaning if you're moving with that reference frame, you will not be able to observe it.
Because it doesn't exist, yes.
It
doesn't exist, like he just said.
Dude's freaking out. Though it
You
really
just read it.
exists. Let's read it again. Okay, so it says it doesn't quote-unquote really exist insofar as it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer, though it really exists.
Do you want to read the next sentence? Do you want to read the next sentence?
Right. Well, if you'll shut the hell up and stop acting like a 5-year-old.
Oh, stop crying, little baby.
Look how impulsive you are.
Yeah, stop crying, little baby, and get on with it.
I'm trying to.
Yeah, go on you go.
So, though it really exists, i.e., in such a way that it could be demonstrated in principle by physical means by a non-co-moving observer, meaning that the observer that isn't moving could actually demonstrate it, but the co-moving observer couldn't demonstrate it. Well, what is it? It is the physical contraction that exists within the moving reference frame. Duh.
But from the moving if you are a co-mover, it doesn't exist, as Einstein just said. You literally just read something that debunks you. Well done.
He still doesn't get it. Think about it.
I get it absolutely because I understand it from the remnants of the second postulate of special relativity. Now I'd like to go with another quote from Einstein. Thus, for a coordinate system moving with the Earth, the mirror system of the Michelson-Morley is not shortened. But it is shortened for a coordinate system which is at rest relatively to the sun. You're wrong, Whitset. And the fact that you can read the thing that says that you are wrong and not realize that you are wrong is indicative of how much of a fucking moron you really are. You said light doesn't travel. Well, if light doesn't travel, explain to me when I pop off my altar's mercy, fucking Hanzo can jump out of it. I'll tell you why. Because of ping. Because light travels, you fucking moron.
Okay. So I get that you think this somehow debunks me. But
it does, 100%.
There, look, a shocker. He's interrupting again. He's a child.
Oh, stop crying, you little baby!
You have serious impulse
Wow, he keeps talking over me, and that's all I can do is poison the well and say things about
the reason
him.
that I'm the one that brought the quote out is
because you don't understand it, that's why.
Clear.
Because you don't understand it, because you're too fucking stupid to understand what you're reading.
It doesn't really, quote unquote, really exist in the way that It doesn't exist for a co-moving observer.
Well
because
done! It
that
doesn't
means
exist for a co-moving observer. Thank you for debunking yourself.
you need to understand that he specifically used the word observer, meaning that you cannot observe or detect it because
So you're
moving
just
in the
interpreting
same-
Einstein's words and ignoring his math. That's brilliant, and that shows why you're wrong. The second postulate of special relativity debunks your interpretation of Einstein's words. I don't know how you don't understand that. The second postulate debunks you, Witsit. Get over your fucking self. You aren't smart. You are barely a talking chimpanzee.
Okay, that's a nice add-on. So
that's not an atom. You don't even know what an atom is. Fuck me. That's an insult, not an atom. They're different things, you talking chimpanzee.
Well, you didn't actually specifically rebut my argument, and then you
The
incorporated
second
an
postulate
insult.
rebuts your argument. The second
It actually
postulate
doesn't,
completely
though. It
rebuts
doesn't,
your
though.
argument. It does 100%.
No, so your incompetence of understanding
So
it doesn't.
here we
rebut
go.
it
I'm going to go
doesn't
through the
somehow-
math for you. So
you see-
you have a
does
train.
everyone
I'm
understand
talking
why I
now.
didn't
I'm
come
talking
talk
now. I'm
to him
talking now. I'm
last
talking now. I'm
week?
talking now.
Is
I'm
everyone
talking now. I'm
starting to
talking now. I'm
get it?
talking now.
Why I
I'm
didn't
talking
talk to him
now.
last week. It's obviously not that I'm scared to
Hey,
talk
good
to
boy,
him,
good boy. You want to be
right?
quiet
I
now.
would say
So
the person
here we
that's
go.
impulsively interrupting
Yeah,
is probably the guy
okay,
that's
here we
scared
go.
to
So
talk
I'm going
to
to
him.
I'm
I
going to
have
go
family
through the
over at my
maths and
house.
show you
I
how
have
you're
a
wrong.
newborn baby.
Yeah.
And I'm not raising my
Poor
voice.
child.
I've already had my wife come in here and ask me to stop raising my voice. So I'm going to disengage if you don't get a hold of yourself. If you want to
shut
run
the
around
fuck
and talk
up and
to
listen
zealots
then.
in your chat and pretend somehow I ran away from you, that's a cool story,
Yeah,
bro.
you will
Everyone
run away.
knows
I
I'm-
understand. You're going to keep complaining about me over talking you and run away. So here is exactly why you're wrong. We're going to use the second postulate of special relativity and show you exactly how wrong you are. Ready? You might want to take some notes here, Witsit. Okay?
I'm pretty sure I was vixen to rebut you, right? So can you calm down? So
Yeah,
the reason
here
you
we go.
need
You might want to take some notes, Witsit, while I explain this to you. Okay?
No,
So
I'm
you
not.
have a
I'm gonna
train.
make my point, though.
Yeah, no,
You're
I'm
trying to run
talking
away
now.
from the point.
Yeah, I'm talking
No,
now,
you're trying to
Witsit.
run
So I'm talking now, so you can maybe learn something. This would be wonderful for you.
That's crazy. You're muted now. How'd that happen? So the reason it's important is it says observer. Okay?
Yeah, you don't get to mute me. This is my thing. Right. Shane,
I
can you
think
hear
you
me?
guys should do 60 seconds apart. Like do 60.
He's afraid
seconds
to do that
and
because
rebuttal.
Or I can just say what I'm about to say, and then he can
Craig?
respond.
Craig, can you ask him, or can you tell everybody what happens in the non-co-moving frame from the perspective of the co-moving frame observer? What happens to that frame?
How it's measured. That's what I said earlier. But I mean, I think
No.
you should
What happens to the observer in the non-co-moving frame?
What do you mean? What happens to the observer?
Does he get contracted? Is he contracting with respect to the co-moving observer?
The co-moving
So you can't
means the thing
check
moving
any-
with the co-moving observer means the one moving with the measurement device. He's not
Right.
contracting.
The non. Yeah. Oh, the one that's observer on the ground watching.
That's the
thing
non-co-moving observer. Yes.
That's what I said. That's what I said. Non-co-moving observer. What happens to his reference frame? What happens to him as he's being viewed from the co-moving?
Well, it's the other
observer?
way around. From his reference frame, he's the one that's stationary, and the person outside is moving. So relative to
Right.
the
But
person
what
on
does
the
the
train,
moving person see?
Well,
What is he?
Again, moving is that's what I'm trying to say. If we're talking about the train versus the person watching the train, right? If the person on the train was to look at the person outside of the train, they would see the person outside of the train contracting.
Rest frames.
Perfect. That's the answer I
Everybody
was
has their
looking
own
for.
rest
Yeah.
So that you didn't say that along the way. That's a key point.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
even though
so
he's
now
not
I'm
seeing
gonna
any
actually
contraction in
respond
his
and-
Well,
frame,
I haven't done my
he's seeing
point yet,
out-
Witsit,
Why
so
can't I talk? What I mean, I was in the middle of a sentence.
Yeah, no, sorry, Witsit
Wait,
interrupted. I
I'm just
was
gonna leave.
waiting for you to
I'm just
finish.
gonna leave.
Bye then.
I'm gonna leave. What I'm not gonna do is listen to a bunch of ignorant Globers pretend they're smart and then talk over me like they
This isn't
somehow
a Glober
have juice over-
talking.
Go for it, dude. Xenix muted. I don't know why he keeps thinking he can speak up. I keep telling
Oh,
him
was
not.
that? I'm sorry. I thought that was a flat earther. I didn't
Yeah,
know
no.
that was another Glober.
Common. Yeah.
No, you didn't.
No, I genuinely didn't. I genuinely didn't know who that was. Okay? Alright, so...
Yeah, that's right. You genuinely didn't think it was a flat earther. Nice Freudian slip.
No, I
So now it's my
genuinely
turn to
didn't know
finish
who
the
it
point I tried
was.
to make
I
5
thought it was
minutes
a
ago.
flat earther. So, there we
And I
go.
finished the
Mute
point I
everyone
was
else.
trying to make 5 minutes
Let's
ago,
give-
but you've been
Well,
keep
I've
continually
been trying to
censoring.
make my point. So, I'll make my point and then you can respond, okay? Fair enough?
That's
Brilliant, let's
only
go.
if you can do 50 sit-ups.
I can actually do 100 sit-ups.
You 100% cannot.
I can.
You want to bet money and live stream it?
Well, no, I don't want to live stream me doing exercise, but I do sit-ups every
you
day. I
can't
go
do
swimming
50
nearly
consecutive
every day.
sit-ups, guaranteed.
Well,
Anyway, go ahead.
I was actually sit-up champion in the Navy, but anyway. So I literally was. I also hold the
Yeah,
record
just like
for
you got injured in war. Yeah, we know. Go ahead.
I wasn't injured at war, and I never said I was.
Did he just say? Did you just say sit-up champion?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like he got injured in war and then got caught lying about it. Go ahead.
I was never injured at war, and I never lied about it.
No,
so
we
shut
know,
the
but you
fucking-
lied about it. Go ahead.
No, I never lied about it, so shut the fuck up, you little bitch.
Well, then stop interrupting me, and it won't get so.
Well,
ugly
okay,
maybe,
so
huh?
what we do is we do my point, and then you can respond. Brilliant, right.
And then if you
So-
interrupt me, I get to mute you, right?
No, you're not allowed to mute me.
Yeah.
This is my thing. If you mute me, I will just kick you out.
Oh, so you're just gonna keep interrupting?
Well, I'm going to do my point, and then you can respond. So shut the fuck up and listen like a good little boy. So.
And then you're not gonna interrupt
And
me,
shut
right?
the fuck up and listen like a good little boy.
Yeah.
You see how? See,
Shut the
this
fuck
is
up
what
and listen
happens.
like a
If
good little
I
boy.
come here, he gets to talk to me in a
How
way
about you
that
shut
he
the fuck
never
up and
would get
listen
to
like a
talk
good
to
little
me,
boy?
right?
Because I'm going to make my point now. There we go.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, after this,
Like, I
we'll
would break
do-
his jaw in real life.
After this-
Oh, you think, what was that? You just threatened, you said you'd break my jaw in real life. Is that what you said?
Come on, guys.
Is that what you just said,
Well,
Wixit?
that's something
That
to
you
say,
would break my
Lexi.
jaw
What
in real
about
life?
that?
You wouldn't get a fucking chance, mate. You would be on the floor before you knew it.
Champion can handle it. The sit-up champion can handle it.
Go back to making your point that Wixit can
Fucking
refute
little
and then make
bitch.
his
I
point.
break your jaw in
Let's go
real
back
life.
to making
You wouldn't
point.
get a fucking chance.
Hey, dick
You
measuring
just-
on the internet is not that fun for anyone else to watch, guys.
I know, he's the one that started it. He's the one that just said he would break my jaw in
dick's
real
the
life
smallest.
because he's a little
Yeah, if
bitch
you were telling
that
me to
can't
shut
cope.
the hell up, little
Shut
boy,
up
in
then,
real
you
life,
little
I'd hit you in
bitch.
the mouth. That's right.
Shut up, you little bitch, and listen. There we go.
See what I'm saying? That's
How about you
get
shut up,
hurt
little
in real
bitch,
life.
and
That's
listen?
all I'm saying.
No, you're going to keep mouthing off like you're a big tough guy that you're not?
It's no way. It's no way for a sit-up champion to talk. Come on.
You see how like incredibly toxic?
Yeah, shut up, little girl, and listen.
Yeah.
I'm a tough
Why are you
guy.
so emotional?
Because you're a dickhead and it's
I want to
funny.
meet the
I'm
faggot.
laughing.
No
No
one's-
one's emotional. I am literally laughing at you that you're
No
a
one's
fucking
even made an
moron
argument.
that thinks
No
that
one's
you
even
could
made an
beat me
argument
up.
for like 10 minutes, guys. This is pretty unbearable.
I know, I've been
Even
trying to
two
make it, but Wixit won't let me
consecutive
talk 'cause he's a little girl that's afraid.
Just imagine. Just
So
imagine.
here we
Craig's
go.
Unit. If
I am
Craig
going
was
to
the
do.
sit-up
I am
champion.
going to do it now. I am going to do my point. So
Alright, this
we have a
evolved
train
really quickly.
that is going 500 miles an hour, and there is someone on the train that has something that is shining a light to a mirror at the other side of the carriage and a receiver. That person on the train can time how long that light takes to go from point A to the mirror at point B and back to point A. For them, they are the co-moving observer with that measurement device. So that's simple for them. They can see how long the light takes to go there and back. And we know the carriage is a certain length. We also know that according to Einstein's second postulate of relativity, that c is invariant. So no matter from the reference frame, you will measure the speed of c as 3 times 10 to the 8 meters per second squared. So now we have to imagine someone outside of the train watching that train go past. They are watching the person in the train fire that beam of light to the mirror and back. Now, if that person outside of the train were to measure how long that light took, he would measure something different. Because for the person outside of the train, when the light was fired, the train was moved forward, and then it hits the mirror at point A. And then on its return journey, the train has moved forward even more, twice as much as the original time, meaning that the light has taken less time to travel from point A to point B and back to point A. Because we know the speed of light is constant, if we were to use the simple formula distance equals speed times time, speed is going to be the same. The time, because light travels, we know how fast light travels, the time taken is going to be the same, which means that from your point of view, outside of the train, that train has shortened in length because distance equals speed times time. For the person that is on the train, there is no difference. There is no relative velocity between them and the measurement device. So for the person on the train, there simply is no contraction. This is Einstein's second postulate of relativity and is what he was talking about. It debunks you 100%, Witsit. I'm done.
Okay. Please don't interrupt me.
Right, so yeah, really, Craig, if you don't afford him the same respect that everyone in the room just gave you, I'm going to have to mute you, bud.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Okay, now this is the fundamental problem when people jump past conceptual understanding to math, similar to the last time they did the math for the length contraction applied to the length of the arm. And they said, oh, it's only 1/5000th the width of a human hair. You're so stupid, ha ha ha. They didn't understand the concept behind it, which is why Lorentz contraction was first put forward. This is the same thing here. What he doesn't understand, here's from Harvard University, but if you try to observe length contraction, you cannot because your view of it is compensated for by the finite speed of light. there's one sentence that summarizes his entire babble. That's all it is once again, if you try to observe the length contraction, you cannot, because your view of it is compensated for by the finite speed of light. Thanks for playing. And this is the point, that he specifically says that the observer cannot see it. And he had to go correct Vladimir, who said that it was just an apparent effect and that there was a difference in physical facts regarding him and Lorentz's theory, which is very simple, that if you're outside the moving frame, if you're a non-co-moving observer, you will be able to see that physical contraction taking place. But if you're within that reference frame and are a co-moving observer, then you will not be able to view or observe it because the length contraction is compensated for by the finite speed of light. And there is a spatial contraction in that entire frame of motion. Therefore, you cannot physically measure it. So if you're on the train and you pull out your ruler and measure the window before it moves, you say it's 11 centimeters. Then it starts to move. If you go to measure the contraction, you will just get 11 centimeters again because the ruler also contracted as well as all the space the train is within. So it's very simple. If you're saying that it's just from the non-co-moving observer that sees it and that's the only place it exists, then you're saying that it's just an apparent effect. But if you're claiming it's a real physical effect, that means that the non-co-moving observer is viewing and observing an actual physical contraction within that moving frame.
Are you done?
Pretty clearly.
Excellent. I was just double checking so you didn't cry about me interrupting you. Yeah, so you completely made up what Einstein's words were there. He never once said that the measurement, that the spatial coordinate also contracts. Einstein never said that at all. Einstein specifically said that it does not contract in the co-moving frame. Those were his words. And when he was talking about how he unjustifiably said they're different, he's talking about how the maths is exactly the same. But then he goes on to say in the very next sentence how the interpretations between Lorentz and him were completely different and how his entire thing is applied differently than to how Lorentz gave it. What you are claiming would say that if you were on the train and measuring your measurement device and then the train started moving, but the measurement device also contracts, but relative to what? Because the contraction is relative to something else. It's a relative velocity. That's what the V stands for, is a relative velocity. So there is no relative velocity between the person in the train and the ruler. There's no relative velocity between them. So for them, there is going to be no contraction. And again, as I pointed out with the thing that I uploaded just now, and I'll upload it again so everyone can read it, Einstein's words, thus for a coordinate system, moving with the Earth, the mirror system of Muggs and Morley is not shortened, but it is shortened for a coordinate system which is at rest relatively to the sun. So if you were on the sun and you were to get a ruler and somehow measure the Muggs and Morley apparatus, from the sun it would appear contracted, but not from the Earth, because it doesn't happen.
That's correct.
But it's not just apparent, right? The thing is that you can accelerate away from someone at high speed, stop, turn around and come back. And at that point, there will be a difference in the amount of time that has passed for one and the other. Now, this is actually because there's 4 dimensions and you would need to do a Minkowski space-time diagram to actually understand how. But it shows that it is not just an apparent thing. It is a real physical contraction, but you only see it from the non-co-moving position. That's it. The fact that it physically happens, the twin paradox and stuff, that there would be a difference in the time between one and the other, shows that it's not just apparent, it's a physical thing.
Okay, he just said it's a real physical thing, but you can only see it from the non-co-moving frame, which means he literally just said my exact point and conceded, which is that it's a real physical
I conceded
thing,
nothing.
but it can, that real physical phenomena can only be observed from a non-co-moving frame. And here is Stanford reiterating the simplicity in this concept that eludes his grasp. The idea that objects contract in length when they travel near the speed of light is a widely accepted consequence of Einstein's special relativity. But if you could observe such an object, it wouldn't look shorter at all, meaning that it is contracting, but in the co-moving frame, it wouldn't look shorter to you. You would have to get outside of it to actually see the contraction. So that means it is physically contracting within that co-moving frame, but you can't observe or detect it. You have to get outside of it to detect that real physical contraction that happens as a result of the direction of
Why'd you go
motion.
against Einstein's words?
Oh, you see how he just skated right past what I just said?
No, I'm not
So
asking
didn't-
you why you are going against Einstein's words. It's not
I'm
skating past
not.
it. Your words go against Einstein's words. There is
First of
no
all, those were
contraction.
Harvard's words.
Again, there is no contraction in the co-moving frame. There is none. It doesn't exist in the co-moving frame. Einstein literally said it does not exist in the co-moving frame. And like Stanford said there, the only way you could view the contraction was to be outside of the co-moving frame, because it doesn't exist in the co-moving frame. You have to be
That's not what it says.
You have to be a non-co-moving observer to see the contraction. But there is no physical contraction in the co-moving frame. That only exists from a non-co-moving observer. That's it.
See,
and at no point,
when...
anywhere did Einstein ever say that it's just contracting, you can't measure it because the measurement device is actually contracting. He never, ever said that once. It's a complete lie that you keep fabricating. And another way that we can actually debunk your understanding, again, is with the length contraction formula. That V is relative velocity. And if that V is 0, which it will be 0 if there is no relative velocity between you and the measurement device, i.e. a co-moving observer, then L equals LO, meaning there is no contraction in the frame of the co-moving observer. You keep saying, oh, you go into the maths, blah, blah, blah. Witsit, it's a mathematical framework that you don't understand.
Okay, so once again, physics is a field of study in which we, apply physical understanding, explanations and understanding to the physical world and the natural phenomena. And then math is an after effect. It's after the fact that we describe that alleged understanding. Can you please stop?
No, it's non sequitur. Relativity is a mathematical framework. We have to use maths if we're talking about relativity.
First of all, you don't know what non sequitur means. Non sequitur means it's non-sequential, meaning it doesn't
it's non-sequential.
follow.
What you're saying is non-sequential to the argument that
You're
relativity is a mathematical framework.
You're already back to interrupting.
Oh, deal with it, you little baby. It's a mathematical framework. Do the maths or shut up.
Okay, so it wasn't non sequitur or non-sequential because it literally directly followed your statement that it was just a mathematical framework.
Yeah, and then you try to ignore the maths by non-sequituring about how maths is in reality. That's a non-sequitur. It's a mathematical framework. Do the maths or shut the fuck up.
Math is supposed to describe that. You don't understand the concept, okay? So I just now read to you an Ivy League school sitting here explaining to you that there is length contraction, but if you try to observe the length contraction, okay, so length contraction exists. The length of objects moving at relativistic speeds undergo a contraction along the dimension of motion. But if you try to observe length contraction, you cannot, because your view of it is compensated for by the finite speed of light. The idea that objects contract in length when they travel near the speed of light is a widely accepted consequence of Einstein's special relativity. But if you could observe such an object, it wouldn't look shorter at all. Yeah. If you don't understand that, then this is the problem with people reading Einstein and talking about it when they don't understand him. Einstein
we
wrote
do understand it because we understand the maths that he came up with.
Wait, I'm almost done. Einstein wrote very efficiently. So in this quote here, he specifically says, this author unjustifiably said there was a difference in Lorentz's view and mine regarding the physical facts, but there is not. That's what unjustifiably means. The question as to whether or not length contraction really exists or not is misleading. It doesn't quote unquote really exist insofar as. Yes,
those words, insofar as. You don't know what that means, do you? He's literally telling you it doesn't exist for the co-moving observer. Those words are in the quote you're reading, Witsit.
Why are you interrupting me?
Stop crying, you little baby.
Insofar as it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer.
Well done. It doesn't exist for a co-moving observer. Well done.
Co-moving observer cannot observe it, cannot view it, cannot detect it, cannot measure it because they're in that reference frame.
Yes, it doesn't exist, like he said.
Observer, but it really exists. He's saying
not for the co-moving observer. He literally said it doesn't exist for the co-moving observer. Those are his words.
listen, man, calm down. The sentence in full is, it doesn't quote unquote really exist insofar as it doesn't exist for a co-moving observer, though it really exists.
Yeah, though it really exists, what's the next bit?
No, that's the end of the sentence. And then it says,
insofar as it can be shown in principle to exist. You're missing the rest of... You're stopping and ignoring the rest of the quote because you think it backs you up. That is cherry picking and dishonest. Whitson, you are wrong. You are wrong about what Einstein said. Einstein never, ever, ever said, ever, that the co-moving observer is contracting, but you just can't measure it because the measurement device is also contracting. That is not what he said. He literally said there is no contraction in the co-moving frame. Those are his words. And the maths back up his words. The second postulate... The second postulate of special relativity back up his words. The maths that he created on his theory back up his words and not yours. You think you know what he said because you are trying to interpret his words, but ignoring the maths when it is a mathematical framework. You do not have an ability to discuss this because you refuse to talk about the maths behind it.
The math came from Lorentz and Oliver Heaviside due to electromagnetic phenomena. You don't know what you're talking about.
Not all of the maths
Einstein didn't come up with new math. Henry Poincaré is the one that created the relativistic math. Einstein didn't do anything.
Einstein did a lot of the maths.
When it came to the math, he just took what was already there. Looks like you got a homework
No, he
assignment.
didn't. He asked for help.
He had to get help. Einstein needed help.
Nothing wrong with asking for help, but he developed so much maths around special relativity. And the fact is that it is a mathematical framework, Witzer, and if you don't talk about the maths, you aren't able to talk about special relativity.
Hey, what's the difference in the math?
L equals LO, because V equals 0. Therefore, there is no contraction in the co-moving frame. Simple as that. Einstein's words. There is no contraction in the co-moving frame. You can't
That's not what he said. That's not what he said.
It literally, he did. He literally said it. Those were the words on the thing that you posted. There is no contraction.
Co-moving observer. It says observer.
Yeah, the observer is in the co-moving frame, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, you cannot observe or detect it, which is why I just now
Yeah, because it doesn't exist. He says it doesn't exist.
No, he literally puts quotations
explain.
He literally puts quotations around the word "really."
No, he didn't put those. He didn't put those.
Yes, he did. Yes, that's in the original writing. You have no idea what you're talking
Do we have the quote where it ends, although it really exists? What's it? Did you read that from memory, or is that a quote somewhere?
Yeah, although it really exists, in principle, it can be shown to exist from the explain what Einstein said here then. Thus, for a coordinate system moving with the Earth, the mirror system of the Mugson-Morley is not shortened. Why did he say that? Why did he say that? Is not shortened. There's no quotes, there's no reinterpretation. Those are his exact words. Thus, for a coordinate system moving with the Earth, the mirror system, the Mugson and Morley is not shortened. There's anything.
I think it would be helpful to show him the math, how the v squared is
relative.
Because
there's no other reference frame than what you're in.
The other frames. You're relating to the other frame that it's in relative nature to, and the math itself that's taken in the muons example, and I'm sure all other examples, it actually takes from that outside reference frame. They're not actually
in the same reference frame on the fucking Earth. You're never off of it anyway, dipshit. You're never like a third party from it,
right?
And your claim is that because of the helicopter and everything's stuck to it, right? So you can't even get as a third party fucking frame away from. We don't know what you're making shit up for.
No, you're the one who just brought up helicopters. I'm asking specifically. I'm asking specifically.
That's where you have your problem.
I'm asking specifically.
Because you think nothing can leave a fucking spinning ball's frame of.
I'm asking specifically why Einstein said the mirror system of the Mugson-Morley is not shortened. I would like an explanation for those exact words, because it debunks everything that Whitsitt says.
Did Whitsitt tap out? Did he tap out?
I'm talking to my wife.
Fair enough. He's got a baby. He can't, if he's dealing with that, it's fine.
Well, I think you should probably, Craig, try to drive home the point of how it's a mathematical framework by talking about how that math is calculated from the outside reference frame, and that you're not actually calculating the frame in motion, right?
Yeah. That's something I'm doing, but I'm putting together like a really good script and stuff for that. I think it's a bit hard to talk about the maths when I can't really show it on the screen, even though I mean
it's just a v squared, right? I mean,
that's what I was saying to him, that v squared is the relative velocity, isn't it? And if there's no relative velocity between you and the measurement device, then
why it's called relativity, right?
Exactly, yeah. And Weisskopf, you get it so well. Thank you. I know it took a while for us to get there, but those videos are really helpful, aren't they?
Yeah, that Indian guy is smart as fuck.
That's what I've actually been emailing him back and forward as well. He's been helping me understand it a lot.
I do find it humorous, amusing, and a little bit alarming that both you and McToon are continuously in Mr. Weisskopf's DMs trying to reclaim him for the Globe. It's such a weird thing to do, right? It's like,
well, because he's talking to him open. I'm not putting my opinion into the matter. I just want truth of things.
Thing is, Toon and I both observed something with Weisskopf, right? We observed him have that moment of realizing he was wrong and admitting he was wrong, right? With the way that session navigation and that works, and that for me and Toon showed that he actually has not only the intelligence but the intellectual honesty to look at things from both sides. He was very adamant that he was right about it, but once it was all actually explained and that it clicked in his head and he saw where he was wrong, he wanted to come to us and talked about it. And it's the same with relativity, right? Weisskopf had a lot of questions about it. He thought that Witzig's point was valid, and you can see from a lot of, why a lot of people will think it's valid. So he wanted to get to the bottom of those answers, and he was going back and forward with me and Toon, and it was a, what's the word I'm looking for? It was an excited conversation, but he actually took on board what we said, looked at the maths and everything behind it, investigated himself and came to an understanding himself. And I think it was the maths that actually helped him understand. Because when I was first debating Witzig about this and I didn't really understand a lot of the points, for me as well, it was the maths that helped me understand the concepts behind it. And the problem is Witzig won't look at the maths because it disproves him.
Well, he keeps on confusing and conflating the idea of the pseudo force or an apparent force being not real, and then you keep on correcting him, like ad numerum, the millions of times that it was depending on that reference frame. Yeah, so that's maybe using that latter. Now
the realness of it still kind of evades me. Like, is it really happening, or is it just an apparent thing? I mean, even that Indian guy was kind of vague in describing it. He even said, like, my students ask me all the time, is it really happening? And like, he just kind of
there's another great video from him, which is about the Moatsky space-time diagram, which answers that question very, very well, because the time dilation, length contraction. Yeah, it's something that you view from an outside position, right? It's the non-comoving observer. But if you were to, view someone going away from you, accelerating, to the speed of light and then stopping and turning around and coming back, the same way with length contraction, for them, the time is dilated, right? So for them, the time has been traveling slower. And we know this would be real because once they got back to us, there would be a, physical difference in the time. And the way to understand that is through the four-dimensional space-time diagrams that are very complicated to understand. But it shows that even though from the co-moving observer's position it doesn't exist, it does exist relative to the person that you're moving away from. And that's what it is. It's all about relativity. There is no absolute motion. There's no, you're moving because you're moving only relative to something else.
Almost like there is no absolute realness or real physicality to something because you almost need some sort of separate. I don't know. It's a total mind fuck for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say that when you look at relativity, it makes sense because it can seem like absolute crazy bullshit until you look at the maths and the experiments behind it, and the Muon experiment and the time dilation experiments with satellites and stuff, and it shows that it's real. Fantastic. Anyway. Right, guys. Witzig's busy, and it's been fun. I've completely debunked him several times now.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear you guys talk more about the realness of it because I think that's where he's really driving home his stance, right? And he's putting his feet in the ground, saying like there is no real thing of it. You're just imposing math. Like I think that's kind of where the argument should go, as opposed to I think you guys are basically both on the same page of the concept of it, but you're just kind of getting
It's
lost
the applications are wrong. He's
yeah.
He's conflating neo-Lorentzian applications with special relativity. He needs to understand the second postulate of special relativity, or he's never going to understand relativity. And he's never understood relativity. He never understood it more than me, just we both misunderstood it the same amount. But now I understand it, and he doesn't. Because do you know why? I studied. He's never studied, he's just quote-mined. There's a big difference. But I think we're going to cut it there tonight, Shane, if that's all right with you.
No, you must stay here and be abused by us for another hours.
Honestly, I've been fucking... Christmas has been, it's been tiring with children, and then today we had to travel for, a whole big distance to see my father-in-law, so pretty knackered, quite drunk as well. These fucking desperados kick my ass.
The hell is a desperado?
It's beer with tequila in.
Oh my god.
It's only 5.9, but that's slightly higher than normal beer, and they're so easy to drink. And I don't normally drink that much, so it really fucking gets me done. But anyway, I wish all of you the happiest of New Year's. Not you, Witsit.
Quick question for you before you leave.
Yes.
Zach's like your biggest fan, I think.
What happens? I think wouldn't the ladder analogy or the comparison be a good way to explain the realness of this topic? You have a ladder that's larger than the size of the barn, moving toward it, close to relativistic speeds. What actually happens from both people's view? But in actuality, can this ladder fit in the barn? Right?
Yeah. It's very similar to like the Muon example, right? Because we know how long a muon lasts, and we know how fast they travel, right? So based on that, when muons are created in the upper atmosphere as cosmic rays hit it, it shouldn't be able to reach the ground. But because the muon, relative to the atmosphere, is traveling so fast, if you were to be able to ride the muon and measure the atmosphere would appear contracted, it would appear shorter. And conversely, if you were at a stationary point in the atmosphere and were to be able to measure the time passing on the muon, the time for the muon would be going slower. So from the point of view of the atmosphere, because the muon is existing longer than it should because of time dilation, it's able to reach it. But from the point of view of the muon, the atmosphere is just shorter, so it's able to reach the ground. It doesn't really happen from the point of view of the muon or the atmosphere, it's from the other side. It is a mindfuck.
And that's the problem. That right there is the paradox that Witsit is just struggling with. I can sense the pain, but he's latched onto it like a dog.
And you know what? I almost understand why he's having difficulties with it, right? Because it's a non-intuitive concept, right? It's not. If you just want to live in the world of basic physics that we live in, it's not something that really makes sense when you first think about it. But that's the point. It's fucking complicated. And that's why it's a mathematical framework that is best described in mathematics.
Hence why it's nonsense backed up by mathematics.
Except for it's experimentally shown to be a fact, of course.
Could I just make
one comment? Craig.
Yes,
mathematics is just a concept, so you can't use it to describe anything.
Oh yeah, I got told that Pythagoras' theorem is just a theory. That was a good one.
I think there has been a massive, huge neglect here tonight of the first law and the first
law is very important as well. The first
postulate, where all laws of physics must be probabilistic in each frame.
Yeah,
because they're not absolute, are they?
No, but the laws of physics will stand the same in each frame, relative to themselves. If you know what I mean. So, if you were to be in one frame and you were to throw a ball, you could take the position and velocity of that ball and make a prediction for its path. But if you were then on something that's moving 100 times the speed, but in that frame it would still be the same. You'd be able to still do the same. So yeah, the laws of physics stand the same in whatever frame you're in, which is quite an important part.
All I can say is all night, all I've heard is you both saying the same thing.
Anyway. Yeah, but it just doesn't get the application of it or the implications, and that's the thing. He just sticks with thinking that the Muggs and Morty experiment physically contracted from the point of view of the Muggs and Morty experiment, but that's just not true, and debunks his entire point. So
It wasn't the
That's
point
why
of
I
it anyway.
said talk about the muons example and
Yeah.
even talk about it from like a Newtonian perspective, just direct time ticking. The muons wouldn't make it, not with the number of muons that we see that reach the surface, right?
Exactly,
That's where
yeah.
you need this contraction formula. And
Yeah,
that's when you apply the contraction math to the muons example, it matches what we actually see in real life with that amount of muons reaching it, right?
Yeah.
Because the Earth now has contracted and the atmosphere has contracted along its path.
It's a total
and if you're on the Muon, you would see that and you go, hey, it's a proper
crazy.
size and distance and time for me to hit, and I do hit.
Yeah, and it is crazy, and it is non-intuitive at first, but the maths makes 100% sense. Anyway, thank you guys for a fun evening as always. Shane, again, I appreciate the use of the server, and I will stay server boosting for as long as we have this awesome arrangement going on. I appreciate the time, and I hope you all have a great New Year, and I hope you had a great Christmas. So thank you very much for having me on, and I'll speak to you all soon.
Thanks, man. See you next week, probably.
See you later. It's fucking hilarious, guys, because Witsit still thinks he's right. Oh, he still thinks he's right. Even though the words, like, look at the words. Oh, where's it gone? You notice how he disappeared when I was asking him to explain to me why it says this particular thing. I'll put the quote up in here so you can see it. Oh, my computer's being slow tonight. Ah, where's the quote gone? Oh, well, yeah, it's the one where Einstein literally says, you know, this is not contracting. The Michelson-Morley experiment is not contracting from the co-moving frame. It's simple as that. There we go. I just saw it. My computer's being weird. It's there, but it's not letting me download it. There we go. Right, yeah, so here we go. This is Einstein's words. Thus, for a coordinate system moving with the Earth, the mirror system of the Michelson-Morley is not shortened. But it is shortened for a coordinate system which is at rest relatively to the Sun. There's no, oh, but it is, you can't measure it. That's a complete lie that Witsit is made up. Oh, man. Well, anyway, that was fun. Have you guys had fun with GaryBot today? How's the new coding for the GaryBot working out? Is he giving some interesting answers? Now, obviously, my knowledge of relativity is still, you know, surface deep in respect to the larger subject, and I cannot wait for my lesson with Professor Phil Bell. He's putting together something for me and Soon to learn a lot about relativity. So, debunked Witsit, always a good day. Super chats. Oh, excuse me. As always, you guys are blowing my mind. Star Sapphire Tomato Chan for $2 says, SC dedicated to ass strain never gets it. What? And thank you. Oh, huge arse. You didn't need to do that, buddy. Wow. Nathan Bishop for $10 says, I'm working on an animation that shows how the sunrise and sunset actually works on the globe versus how it would look if Earth were a pizza. I really hope you can show it on your channel when I'm done. I'll be glad to, my friend. Tim Tully, member for 16 months, says, Happy Boxing Day, my friend. 'Tis the season for Eggs Benedict. Happy holidays. Not a massive fan of Eggs Benedict, actually. Just, you know, leftover meat sandwiches is good for me. Nathan Bishop, I just read that one. Andreas Eldritch for 56 says, on the third night of Christmas, FTFE gave to me 3 postulates of relativity, 2 ad hominems, and a dumpster fire in an echo chamber. I shouldn't sing. That's banned by the Geneva Convention, I've heard. Thank you very much. And then Delano for $10. Thank you. It's not a name I recognise. Thank you very much. When will Flerfs like Witsit understand that quotes from scientists who don't agree with them is really poor evidence? Stop being hypocritical and provide us some actual evidence. Measurements, maybe? I know. You notice how Witsit's like, what you guys don't understand is what Einstein actually meant. Yeah, we do understand what he meant. And it's not what you fucking said. Oh, brilliant. Stringer News 1, $5 says, so, any quote minds of Einstein saying the Earth is flat? No? Then shut the fuck up. Yeah. I wasn't having Witsit being a whiny little bitch today. He's interrupting me. Shut the fuck up, you princess. 2 Directs explain stuff for $5 says, please shift interferometry. Phase shift interferometry is used for aerial surface characterization. Yeah. Brian is so wrong about what he's saying. So wrong. Connell Silver, $5. Word salad just isn't nonsensical technical terms. Word salad isn't just using nonsensical technical terms. It's also when you spout real jargon of which you have no understanding. Bring your dressing. Yeah. And Witsit has no understanding. Stringer News 1 for $5 says derp is absolute, faster than light, and leaves a rash. Yeah. Derp is instantaneous, and it damages your brain. Connell Silver for $5 says, I will post it, but I will not understand it. Brian, 2022. Oh, and also, save Brian's other gem. Distance is motion. What? Is distance motion, Brian? Well, not technically. What do you mean not fucking technically? Valkyrie Vision 499 says, I've got pneumonia, so I won't watch right now, but thanks for all you do, sir. I hope you get better, Valkyrie Vision. I'm sorry that you got pneumonia. It's fucking horrendous. I've had it myself. It really, really sucks. Gary Little for $5 says, Craig, universe flat, Earth globe. I can hear Brian's brain explode. They need brains for that to happen. The Spirit, member for 26 months, says, whoa, it's not an absolute dumpster fire yet. I made it a little bit of a one because, you know, I wanted to have some fun. Connor Silver for a $10. Take a 10 just for the much needed destruction of the con artist. Twitsit gets shit. He immediately fell back to his old fallacy playbook, showing just how utterly destroyed he was. Good job, sir. He doesn't know what an ad-hom is. Fucking hilarious. Bacon Head Eating for Fun, member for 1 month. Thank you very much, my friend. You rock, Fight the Flat Earth. Thank you very much. You rock as well. Albeus U8 for 10 Canadian dollars says, Witless is so pretentious. He thinks he knows everything better than anyone. Speaks slowly at times or fast to blind his dumb buddies. Quotes the first words that come up on Google and then rage quits. I know. It was fucking hilarious when he Googled the Lorentz transformation formula and told me I was wrong because he misread the formatting. Mannerheim for £5 says, whoa, Witsit being so shockingly smug while being so wrong is both absolutely hilarious and mind-numbingly frustrating. Man's Dunning-Kruger personified. Yeah, he fucking is. Poor child. I mean, hopefully he can be a loving and fantastic dad and doesn't push his cult onto his kid. Stringer News 1, $1.99. Game over, Witsit. Thank you very much. Stringer News 1 for $2 says, hey, Witless, did Lorentz say the Earth was flat? No, he didn't. Albeus for $5 Canadian says, here lies Witless. The gravity of the situation is deeply felt around the globe. Here, Witless, have a tissue. Craig keeps over-talking me. Oh no, I can't have a conversation because he keeps debunking me. Isabella Live 2.0 for $2 Canadian, and I'm assuming that this is irony because it says Witsit is a genius. You spelt talking chimp wrong. RachBot, my favourite AI, for 36 months has been a member, says looking spiffy. Well, thank you very much. Fogel Pership Akashi for $2 says, FTFE says he has to leave, and 30 minutes later, yeah, it never works, does it? Huge Arspin, a member for 8 months, says, you just talked to Witsit, you need more desperados, not less. I've run out. I want more. Dilo became a new member. Dylano, sorry. Thank you very much, my friend. You are fucking awesome. Welcome to Scrappers. And a Huge Arse, all the love, my friend, $50 from Australia, says, can I plug that I have a live stream with PhD Tony in about 6 hours and another one with Toon in about 28 hours on my channel. Hope you have a great Christmas. No, you can't plug it. Fuck off. Of course you can. Guys, in 6 hours, PhD Tony and Huge Arse will be having a chat. And then in 28 hours, MC Toon will be there as well. Please subscribe to Huge Arse. He has a huge arse. Hammer for £5 says, it was great tonight. Also, have a look at Leonard Susskind videos. He does explain some of this nicely. Any help in explaining to these morons is always good. I'll check it out. Indie Tiger Sci-Fi Review for $5. Photons as the comfort carrier particle has been empirically disproven. Yeah, photons aren't comfy. And JSS Tiger for $5. Are there any flat math songs? We need some. No, they're too stupid to be able to figure out music, unfortunately. Guys, I hope you have had an incredible Christmas and a great Boxing Day, finished off by a display of stupidity. I'll be back very soon with some more derp. The episode of Flerfs Idiots, a debate short by Globermum, and all that good stuff. You guys have yourself an amazing new year. I will see you before then. Matt Patak for $4.99 says, Relativity made simple. C will remain constant in any reference frame. To do so, it will change time and length in anyone's reference frame. Yes! Absolutely. Good night, guys. You've had... Well, you've had a massive impact on me. You've made me feel happy and amazing because you constantly support what I do. I love every single one of you. Remember, stupidity is not a right. Fight the flat earth. Fight the flat. Fight the flat. Fight the flat. Fight the flat. Good night, guys. Fight the flat. 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 Wits it got wrecked.